The bullet had already been meant for her 3 hours ago. Sarah Chen didn't know it yet, lying there in the rain with her skull fractured and her radio smashed, but the 2 cops who'd run her off the road were circling back to finish the job. And the tattooed man kneeling beside her broken body, the one with Hell's Angels patched across his leather vest, the one every cop in the state had a file on. He was about to make a choice that would either save her life or end his own. His phone was in his hand. 911 was 4 numbers away, but his thumb moved to a different contact entirely. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and stay with this story until the end. Comment below with your city, so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. Jake Morrison's Harley hit a pothole hard enough to rattle his teeth, and that's when he saw the chrome bumper reflecting his headlight. Wrong angle. Too steep. The patrol car sat nose down in the drainage ditch like someone had driven it there on purpose, and Jake had spent enough years reading crime scenes to know the difference between an accident and a setup. He cut his engine. The silence hit first, then the smell-burnt rubber radiator fluid, something else metallic that made his combat instincts scream. No skid marks on the wet pavement behind the cruiser, no debris trail, just a perfect straight line off the road, like the car had been placed there by hand. His boots splashed through standing water. The driver's door hung open, and the interior light was still on, casting yellow shadows across the empty seat. The radio spat static and broken voices calling for a unit that wouldn't answer. Jake's hand went to his phone automatically, then stopped. 23 years of living outside the law had taught him when something smelled wrong. This smelled like a slaughterhouse. Officer down, he muttered, moving around the hood. That's when he found her. She was young, too young, maybe 25, lying on her back in 2 inches of rainwater with her arms spread like she was making snow angels. Dark hair plastered across her face, and underneath it blood. A lot of blood mixing with the rain and running in pink streams toward the storm drain. Jake dropped to his knees, his leather cut splashing water across her uniform. His fingers found her throat, pressing against the carotid. There, weak and thready, but there. She was alive. Her eyes fluttered, tried to focus, failed. Stay with me, Jake said, and his voice came out rougher than he meant. Stay right here. She made a sound. Not words, just a small broken noise that hit him somewhere he'd thought was dead. Her hand twitched, fingers scraping against the wet asphalt like she was trying to grab onto consciousness itself. That's when Jake saw the second set of tire tracks, fresh, leading away from the scene. And the pattern in the mud told him everything he needed to know. Another vehicle had been here, had pushed her off the road, had left her to die. His phone was in his hand before he'd made the conscious decision to reach for it. His thumb hovered over 911, standard protocol. Call it in. Let the professionals handle it. Let the system work. Except the system was what had put her here. Jake had spent 15 years learning to read situations that wanted him dead. Afghanistan had taught him the most important lesson. Sometimes the uniform didn't matter. Sometimes the person wearing it was the enemy. And sometimes the enemy wore a badge. He looked at the officer's face again. Her eyes had closed, but her lips were moving, forming words he couldn't hear over the rain. Hold on, he told her. I'm making a call, but it's not the one you'd expect. His thumb moved past 911, scrolled through his contacts, and landed on a number he'd programmed 3 years ago after the club had started doing legitimate security work. The number connected before the first ring finished. Profit. The voice on the other end was gravel and whiskey. We got a situation, Jake said. Industrial Park Road, half-mile past the old Wilson factory. Cop down. Looks like a hit. Silence. Then, you sure? I'm sure. How bad? Jake looked at the blood pooling under the officer's head. Bad enough, and whoever did it might come back to finish. We're rolling. 8 minutes. The line went dead. Jake slipped his phone back into his vest and turned his attention to the woman dying in front of him. She was trying to talk again, her lips forming shapes that might have been words if she'd had the strength to push them out. He leaned closer. Don't talk. Save your energy. They They're coming back. Her voice was barely a whisper, but the terror in it was crystal clear. They said they'd make sure. Ice water ran down Jake's spine. Who's coming back? Her eyes opened. For just a second, they focused on his face, and he saw her register the leather vest, the patches, the tattoos running up his neck. Saw the fear spike even higher. No, she breathed. No, please. I'm not here to hurt you, Jake said quickly. I found you like this. I'm trying to help. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. She thought he was part of it, thought the biker kneeling over her was exactly what a dying cop would expect to see the enemy come to finish what someone else had started. Listen to me. Jake's voice went hard and commanding, the same tone he'd used on young privates who were about to get themselves killed. I don't know who did this to you, but they're not getting a second chance. You understand? My brothers are coming. We're going to keep you alive until we figure out who wants you dead. Your brothers. She coughed, and blood flecked her lips. Your hellsangels? Yeah. And right now that's the only thing standing between you and a bullet. She tried to shake her head, but the movement made her gasp in pain. Can't trust. Can't. You don't have a choice, officer. Jake shrugged out of his leather vest. The patches caught the dim light. The death's head, the MC rocker, the California bottom rocker that marked him as a full member. He folded it carefully and lifted her head with one hand, sliding the vest underneath as a pillow. The leather was warm from his body heat. She felt it against her skull and made another small sound, this one almost grateful. What's your name? Jake asked. Sarah. It came out as barely a breath. Chen. Okay, Sarah Chen. I'm Jake Morrison, and you're going to live through this. You hearing me? You're going to make it. She wanted to believe him. He could see it in her eyes, the desperate grab for hope. But she was also a cop, and he was a Hell's Angel, and somewhere in her training, someone had told her people like him were the monsters. Funny how the world worked. In the distance, Jake heard the sound he'd been waiting for, low and rumbling, growing louder with each passing second. Not one engine, dozens. The deep-throated roar of Harley-Davidson motorcycles all running together like rolling thunder. Sarah heard it too. Her eyes went wide. What is that? That's help, Jake said. The kind that doesn't ask questions first. The first bike appeared around the corner, its single headlight cutting through the rain like a searchlight. Then another. Then 5 more. They came in a steady stream, each rider dressed in leather and denim, each bike worth more than most people's cars. They filled the street, their engines creating a wall of sound that drowned out everything else. Prophet pulled up first, killing his engine 20 feet away. He was a big man, 6'4", and built like a bear with a gray beard that reached his chest and eyes that had seen things that would break most people. He swung off his bike and walked toward Jake, his boots hitting the wet pavement with heavy authority. How bad? Prophet asked again. Head trauma. Internal bleeding probably, and she says they're coming back to finish it. Prophet's jaw tightened. He looked down at Sarah and something flickered across his face. Not pity. Something harder. Something personal. No one's finishing anything, he said. Marco. Get on the North Access Road. Tony South. I want eyes on every route in and out of here. Anybody approaches, I want to know about it before they get within 100 yards. The bikers moved without question, their motorcycles spreading out to form a perimeter. More kept arriving, 20, 30, 40 bikes. They created a wall of chrome and leather around Sarah's broken body, their headlights illuminating the scene like stadium floodlights. Sarah was shaking now. From shock, from cold, from fear, Jake couldn't tell. Maybe all 3. She tried to sit up and he pushed her back down gently but firmly. Don't move. You've got a head injury. You don't understand. She was crying now, tears mixing with rain and blood. They'll kill you too. They'll kill all of you. Who will? Prophet knelt down beside Jake, his voice surprisingly gentle for a man his size. Who did this to you? Sarah's mouth opened, closed, opened again. And then in a voice so quiet Jake almost missed it. Cops. The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Prophet and Jake locked eyes, and in that moment, an entire conversation happened, without words. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't some civilian with a grudge. This was blue on blue. This was a cop killing another cop, which meant this was so much worse than either of them had imagined. Names, Jake said. We need names. But Sarah's eyes were rolling back. Her breathing was getting shallower and the blood was still coming. Too much blood. We need an ambulance, Jake said. Now. Prophet already had his phone out. This is Marcus Stone. I need an ambulance at Industrial Park Road, half-mile past Wilson Factory. Officer down. Head trauma. Possible internal bleeding. He paused. Yeah, this is legitimate. I'm on scene. We've got about 50 witnesses. He hung up. Looked at Jake. They're coming, but we've got maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Sarah Chen didn't look like she had 10 minutes. Jake pressed his hand against the wound on her head, trying to slow the bleeding. His fingers came away red and slick. Stay with us, Sarah. Come on. 10 minutes. You can do 10 minutes. Her eyes found his face, struggled to focus. Why are you helping me? It was a good question. Jake had spent the last 15 years avoiding cops, not saving them. But the answer came to him easy as breathing. Because it's the right thing to do. But I'm a cop. And I'm a Hell's Angel. Guess we're both full of surprises. The sound of a car engine cut through the rumble of motorcycles. Jake's head snapped up, his hand automatically going to the knife on his belt. But Prophet was already moving, waving at 3 of his brothers to intercept. A sedan appeared around the corner, moving too fast for the wet road. It slowed when the driver saw the wall of motorcycles, then stopped completely when 6 bikers moved to block the road. Jake watched as Prophet walked toward the car. Through the rain, he could see 2 shapes in the front seat. Both male. Both sitting too rigid, too alert. The driver's window rolled down. Prophet leaned in, and even from 20 feet away, Jake could read his body language. Everything about it screamed threat. The conversation lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then Prophet stepped back and the car reversed, turned around, and disappeared the way it had come. Prophet walked back, his face carved from stone. 2 white males, 20s, said they were just passing through. You believe them? No. Driver had a shoulder holster. Passenger kept his right hand out of sight. Prophet looked down at Sarah. They know she's alive, and they know we're here. That changed everything. If the people who'd done this knew their target had survived, they'd be making plans, adjusting their strategy, coming back with more firepower and a better story. We need to move her, Jake said. We move her, we might kill her, Prophet countered. That head wound. If we don't move her, someone else will finish the job. Jake looked at the ring of motorcycles, the wall of leather and chrome. How many you got here? 53. More on the way. Not enough. Not if they come back with badges and warrants. Not if they make this official. Prophet knew he was right. They both knew it. A biker gang couldn't hold off the police department forever, no matter how many witnesses they had. Eventually, the law would win. The law always won. Unless the law was the criminal. Sarah coughed and more blood came up. Her breathing was definitely shallower now, and her skin had gone from pale to gray. She was dying, and they both knew it. Ambulance is 8 minutes out, Prophet said quietly. She doesn't have 8 minutes. Then what do you want to do? Jake looked at the woman bleeding out on his leather vest, looked at the 50-some bikers standing guard in the rain, looked at Prophet, who'd pulled him out of a bottle 3 years ago and given him something to live for again. I want to know why, Jake said. Why would cops want a rookie officer dead? Because she saw something, Prophet said, or heard something, or knew something she wasn't supposed to know. He crouched down, his knees popping. Sarah, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, barely. What did you see? What got you here? She tried to talk. Failed. Tried again. This time one word made it out: files. What files? Evidence. Room. Numbers didn't match. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. Evidence room discrepancies. That could mean anything. Missing drugs, planted weapons, disappeared money. And if someone was willing to kill a cop to keep those discrepancies quiet, it meant the corruption went high, real high. Who else knows? Prophet asked. Did you tell anyone? Sarah's head moved. Barely a shake. Just my training officer. This morning. Who's your training officer? Webb. Lieutenant Marcus Webb. The name hit Jake like a fist. He knew that name. Every biker in California knew that name. Lieutenant Marcus Webb had a reputation hard on crime, harder on bikers. He'd led 3 major raids on club operations in the last 5 years. He was the kind of cop who saw the world in black and white, good guys and bad guys, badges and criminals. He was also apparently the kind of cop who killed rookies who asked too many questions. "Oh, this is bad," Jake muttered. "This is really bad." Prophet's face had gone stone cold. Webb's the one who ran the raid on the Riverside charter last year. 4 of our brothers are still in lockup because of him. And if he's dirty, then every bust he made is suspect. Every arrest, every conviction, every piece of evidence he ever touched. Prophet stood up, and when he spoke again, his voice carried across the entire street. "Brothers, we got a situation. The officer down is a rookie who found evidence of corruption. Her training officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, is the one who tried to kill her. Which means when that ambulance gets here, we need to make damn sure she gets to a hospital that Webb doesn't control." A murmur ran through the gathered bikers. Jake could feel the energy shifting, anger replacing confusion. These were men who'd been harassed by cops for years. Men who'd been pulled over for the crime of riding motorcycles. Men who'd watched their brothers get locked up on charges that smelled fishy from the start. And now they had confirmation that at least one cop was dirty. Maybe more. "County General," one of the bikers called out. "My old lady works there. Says they're independent from city police." "That's 45 minutes away," another voice countered. "She won't make it." "Then we make sure the ambulance takes her there anyway," Prophet said. "And we make sure nobody stops them on the way." Jake looked down at Sarah. Her eyes were closed again, and her breathing had gotten so shallow he had to watch her chest to confirm she was still alive. 10 minutes. The ambulance was 10 minutes away. If she lived that long. "Talk to me, Sarah," Jake said, his voice low and urgent. "Come on, stay here. Tell me about yourself. Where'd you grow up?" "Nothing." Sarah. Louder this time, sharper. Her eyes cracked open, just a sliver. "Where'd you grow up?" San Francisco." So quiet he had to read her lips more than hear the words. "Yeah, I did a tour at Presidio. Beautiful city. You got family there. Mom, Dad, little brother. They know you're a cop. Proud." A tear slipped down her cheek. So proud. Jake's throat went tight. She was somebody's daughter. Somebody's big sister. She'd probably joined the force to help people to make a difference, all the idealistic bullshit they fed recruits in the academy. And her reward was bleeding out in a ditch while the people who'd sworn to protect her came back to finish the job. "They're going to stay proud," Jake told her, "because you're going to make it. You hear me? You're going to tell them this story yourself. Can't trust anyone. You can trust me. You're a criminal." Jake laughed, and it came out bitter. "Yeah, I am. Did 2 tours in Afghanistan, got a dishonorable discharge for beating the hell out of a lieutenant who was selling weapons to the Taliban. Came home to nothing. No job, no benefits, no future. The angels gave me a place when nobody else would." He looked at the men standing guard in the rain. "These criminals, they're the only family I've got, and right now they're better cops than the ones who did this to you." Sarah's hand moved, found his. Her fingers were cold and wet, and so weak he barely felt them. Don't let them win, she whispered. We won't. Promise. I promise. Her eyes closed again, but this time her hand stayed in his. The sound of sirens finally cut through the rain. Jake looked up to see red and white lights approaching from the east. The ambulance. Thank God. But right behind it, 2 police cruisers. Prophet, Jake said quietly. We got company. Prophet turned, saw the cruisers, and his expression went dark. Positions. Nobody moves unless I say so. And for God's sake, nobody pulls a weapon. We play this clean. The ambulance pulled up first, and 2 paramedics jumped out. They took one look at the scene, 50 bikers, 1 injured cop, enough chrome and leather to fill a showroom, and hesitated. She's critical, Jake called out. Head trauma, internal bleeding. She needs county general. We're taking her to City Memorial, one of the paramedics said, moving forward with a stretcher. Standard protocol. No. Prophet stepped into their path. Not threatening, just immovable. County general, City Memorial is compromised. Sir, we don't take orders from... The cop who did this works out of City Memorial, Jake interrupted. You take her there, she dies. You understand, they'll finish the job. The paramedics looked at each other. Behind them, the police cruisers had stopped and 4 officers were getting out. Jake's stomach dropped when he recognized the lead officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb. Tall, fit, late 40s with gray at the temples and a face that belonged on recruitment posters. He looked exactly like what he was supposed to be, a good cop. A hero. He was also a killer. Webb's eyes scanned the scene, landing on Sarah's broken body, then on Jake, kneeling beside her. Something flickered across his face. Recognition. Calculation. Rage. Well, well. Webb said, his voice carrying authority and contempt in equal measure. Jake Morrison. Should have known you'd show up where you don't belong. Jake stood slowly, placing himself between Webb and Sarah. Just trying to help, Lieutenant. Is that what this is? Help. Webb's hand rested on his service weapon. Looks more like 50 criminals interfering with a crime scene. Looks more like 50 witnesses, Prophet said calmly. To attempted murder. Webb's eyes snapped to Prophet. Marcus Stone. Long time. Still running with trash, I see. Still protecting rookies who ask too many questions, I see. The air went electric. Jake could feel it the moment when words stopped mattering and violence became inevitable. Webb's hand tightened on his weapon. The 3 officers with him shifted their stances. And behind Jake, 50 bikers stood ready to do whatever Prophet ordered. Sarah groaned. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. Webb's eyes dropped to her and Jake saw it, just a flash, but enough. Relief. He'd thought she was dead. Seeing her alive was a problem he'd have to solve. Officer Chen is coming with us, Webb said. That's non-negotiable. She's going to County General, Jake countered. That's non-negotiable. You don't get to make that call, Morrison. Neither do you. Not anymore. Jake pulled his phone out of his vest. Because I've been recording this whole conversation. And I've got 50 witnesses who will testify you just showed up at a crime scene where your own training officer was nearly murdered. That's going to raise questions, Lieutenant. A lot of questions. Webb's face went white, then red. You're threatening a police officer. I'm protecting one. The paramedics had reached Sarah during the standoff. They were working fast, checking vitals, stabilizing her neck, getting her onto the stretcher. One of them looked up at Prophet. County General, he asked quietly. Prophet nodded. County General, and you get stopped on the way, you radio for backup. You tell them Marcus Stone said so. The paramedic's eyes widened. He knew the name. Everyone in California knew the name. And apparently he also knew that sometimes the criminals were more trustworthy than the cops. Understood, he said. They lifted Sarah onto the stretcher. As they carried her past Jake, her eyes opened one more time, found his face, and her lips moved, forming 2 words he couldn't hear but could read clearly. Thank you. Then she was in the ambulance, and the doors were closing, and the sirens were wailing as they pulled away into the rain. Webb watched them go, his jaw clenched so tight Jake could see the muscle jumping. When he finally turned back, his expression was carved from ice. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, Morrison. Funny. I was going to say the same thing to you. Webb stepped forward, close enough that Jake could smell his cologne expensive and sharp. You have no idea what you're interfering with. Then why don't you enlighten me? You want to play cop, biker, fine. Let's play. That ambulance doesn't make it to County General. It's on you. Those paramedics have an accident on the way. It's on you. And when Internal Affairs starts asking why a Hell's Angel was first on scene at an officer-involved incident, when they start digging into your record and your club's activities, when they find every illegal thing you've ever touched, that's on you too. Jake held his ground. Sounds like you're worried, Lieutenant. I'm not worried. I'm informing you of consequences. Webb looked past Jake to Prophet. Both of you. You want a war with the police department. Keep going. See how that works out. Prophet's voice was silk over steel. We don't want war, Lieutenant. We want justice. And right now, we're the only ones making sure that girl gets it. That girl is a police officer who got into a single vehicle accident, nothing more. Single vehicle, Jake pointed at the tire tracks, still visible in the mud. You want to explain those? Webb didn't even look. Probably yours. My bike doesn't have 4 wheels. Then probably another witness. Someone who left before emergency services arrived. Happens all the time. Webb smiled, and it was the coldest thing Jake had ever seen. You boys go home. Take your circus with you. Let the professionals handle this. The professionals, Jake said slowly, are the ones who put her in that ditch. Webb's hand dropped to his weapon, just rested there, a threat wrapped in procedure. Careful, Morrison. That's slander against a police officer. It's the truth. It's a conspiracy theory from a convicted felon with a vendetta. No one will believe you. Sarah will. If she lives. Webb said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. Head injuries are tricky. Sometimes people wake up. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they wake up and can't remember anything. He leaned in closer. And sometimes they remember wrong. Trauma does funny things to memory. The threat was crystal clear. Even if Sarah survived, Webb would make sure her testimony was worthless. Would paint her as confused, unreliable, a rookie who'd made a mistake and couldn't admit it. Jake's hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to put this smug bastard on the ground. But that's what Webb wanted. A reason to arrest him. A reason to make Jake the story instead of the corruption. We're done here, Prophet said quietly, his hand on Jake's shoulder. Brothers, let's roll. The bikers started their engines. 50 Harleys roaring to life in perfect synchronization. The sound was deafening, and in that moment, it sounded like justice. Jake held Webb's eyes for one more second. This isn't over. No, Webb agreed. It's really not. Jake turned and walked to his bike. His hands were shaking as he strapped on his helmet. Behind him, he could hear Webb and his officers conferring in low voices, planning their next move, covering their tracks. Prophet pulled up beside him. You good? No. Me neither. Prophet's face was grim. That girl's not safe. You know that, right? Webb's going to try again. I know. So what are we going to do about it? Jake looked at the spot where Sarah had been lying. His vest was still there, soaked and bloody. He walked over and picked it up, feeling the weight of it. This was his identity, his family, his life, and he was about to risk all of it for a cop he'd just met. We're going to protect her, Jake said. Whatever it takes. Jake, whatever it takes, Prophet. The older man studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. All right, then we do this smart. Webb's got the law on his side. We've got numbers and motivation. But if we're going to take down a dirty cop, we need evidence. Real evidence. The kind that holds up in court. How do we get that? We start with the girl. When she wakes up, if she wakes up, we get her to talk. Find out exactly what she saw in those files. Find out how deep this goes. Prophet's expression went hard. And then we burn it down. All of it. Jake climbed onto his bike, started the engine. The rumble vibrated through his bones, familiar and grounding. County General, he said. We need people there, watching, making sure no one gets to her. Already on it. Tommy's crew is heading there now. They'll keep eyes on her room 24/7. Prophet paused. But Jake, if Webb's dirty, he's not working alone. Corruption like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. He's got partners, maybe in the department, maybe higher up. Meaning we can't trust anyone. Meaning we can only trust each other. The rain was letting up. Through the clouds, Jake could see the first hints of dawn breaking over the city. A new day. But it didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like the start of something dark and dangerous. Webb and his officers were still there watching the bikers prepare to leave, memorizing faces, taking notes, building their case for whatever move they'd make next. Jake met Webb's eyes one last time, saw the promise of violence there, the certainty that this wouldn't end well for anyone. Then he twisted his throttle and rode away into the breaking dawn, his brothers flanking him on both sides. 50 motorcycles heading toward an uncertain future, toward war with the police, toward a fight they might not win. But Sarah Chen was alive. For now. And that was worth fighting for. The hospital cafeteria coffee tasted like burnt motor oil, but Jake drank it anyway. He'd been awake for 36 hours straight, and his body was running on fumes and adrenaline. Across from him, Tommy Chen, no relation to Sarah, just the universe's idea of a joke, was scrolling through security camera footage on his tablet. "Third floor room 312, Tommy said without looking up. "They moved her out of ICU 2 hours ago. That's good, right? Means she's stable. Or means they needed the ICU bed for someone who might actually survive." Jake rubbed his eyes. "Webb been by?" "Not yet, but 2 plainclothes came through around 4 a.m. Flash badges at the nurse's station asked about her condition. Nurse told them family only. They didn't push it. They were testing the perimeter, seeing who's watching, who's protecting her." Tommy finally looked up, and his face was drawn tight. "Jake, we've had brothers on rotation for 24 hours. We can't keep this up forever. Prophet's already catching heat from the other chapters. They're saying this is suicide, that we're starting a war we can't win. Then they can vote me out. But I'm not leaving her unprotected." "Why?" Tommy's question wasn't accusatory, just genuinely confused. "You don't know this girl. She's a cop. Yesterday you would have crossed the street to avoid her. Now you're willing to burn the whole club for her." Jake didn't have a good answer, or maybe he had too many answers and none of them made sense even to himself. He'd been asking the same question all night while standing guard outside Sarah's hospital room. Why did he care? Why did this matter? Maybe because she'd looked at him, really looked at him and asked for help when she had every reason not to trust him. Maybe because the fear in her eyes when she'd said cops had reminded him of his own fear 15 years ago when his commanding officer had threatened him into silence. Maybe because saving one person felt like saving himself. "She knew she was dying," Jake said finally, "and the last thing she did was warn me. Told me they were coming back. She could have saved her strength, but she used it to protect a stranger." Tommy's expression softened. "That's why you're doing this. Because she's one of the good ones. Because she deserves better than getting murdered by the people who swore to protect her." A nurse walked past their table and both men went quiet automatically. Old habits. When she was gone, Tommy leaned forward. "There's something else you should know. That footage I pulled from the entrance cameras Webb showed up at 7 p.m. yesterday, 6 hours before you found her." Jake's blood went cold. He was here. Visitor's log shows he signed in to see Officer Mitchell in room 218, stayed 40 minutes, left at 7:47 p.m. Mitchell's not our girl. Exactly. Which means either he got the wrong room, or he was establishing an alibi, making sure people saw him visiting a sick cop, looking like the caring training officer. Jake stood up fast enough to knock his chair back. "We need to talk to Mitchell. Find out what Webb said to him." "Already tried. Mitchell's not talking. Discharged himself this morning against medical advice." That was wrong. Everything about that was wrong. Jake's instincts were screaming again, the same way they'd screamed when he'd found Sarah in that ditch. Where is he now? Don't know. Hospital won't say. Patient privacy. Jake was already moving toward the elevator. Tommy scrambled to follow, grabbing his tablet. They rode up to the third floor in silence, and Jake could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. Something was about to break. He could feel it the way he used to feel mortar attacks coming in Afghanistan, a pressure in the air, a wrongness that made his skin crawl. The third floor was quieter than ICU. Fewer nurses, fewer monitors beeping. Sarah's room was at the end of the hall, and standing outside it was Crusher, 6'5", 300 pounds, covered in tattoos, and looking exactly like what he was, a Hell's Angel enforcer. "She awake?" Jake asked. "In and out. Keeps asking for her parents. Nurse said they're driving down from San Francisco. Should be here by noon." Crusher's voice dropped. "She's scared, Jake. Keeps saying she can't go back, that they'll kill her." "They won't get the chance." Jake pushed open the door. The room was small and antiseptic, dominated by the hospital bed and the machines clustered around it. Sarah looked impossibly young lying there, her dark hair spread across the pillow, a bandage wrapped around her head. Her eyes were closed, but he could see the rapid movement beneath her lids. Dreaming, or remembering. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, waited. Sometimes the best thing you could do was just be there when someone woke up. Let them know they weren't alone. It took 5 minutes. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. Then they found his face, and he watched recognition dawn. "You're real," she whispered. Her voice was rough, damaged. "I thought maybe I dreamed you." "I'm real. So are you. You made it." "Where am I?" "County General. You've been here about 12 hours. Doctors say you're going to be okay." Tears welled up in her eyes and spilled over. Not sad tears. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. I thought I was going to die in that parking lot." "You almost did. But you didn't." She tried to sit up and gasped in pain. Jake put a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. "Easy. You've got broken ribs, a fractured skull, and enough internal bleeding that they had to operate twice. You need to stay still. My parents, on their way, should be here soon." That seemed to calm her. She sank back against the pillow, but her eyes stayed locked on his face, studying him, trying to figure him out. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "Because you needed help." "But I'm a cop. You're a Hell's Angel." "Yeah, world's full of surprises." Jake leaned back in the chair. "You told me cops did this to you. You remember that?" Her face went pale. "I said that out loud." "You did. And you said you'd found something in the evidence files, numbers that didn't match." Jake's voice went soft, coaxing. "Sarah, I need you to tell me exactly what you saw. Because whoever did this to you, they're going to try again. And next time I might not be there to stop them." She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something different there. Not fear, determination. "I've been a cop for 18 months, she said. "I wanted to make detective. Thought if I worked hard, paid attention, learned everything I could, maybe I'd get promoted early. So I volunteered for extra duties, filing, evidence logging, anything to get experience." "And you saw something." 3 weeks ago, I was doing intake on a drug bust. Big one. 15 kilos of cocaine, 200,000 in cash. Webb was the arresting officer. He brought everything in personally, logged it himself. But when I pulled the paperwork to file it, the numbers were off. Off how? The field report said 15 kilos. The evidence log said 12. 3 kilos just disappeared between the arrest site and the station. Jake felt his stomach drop. 3 kilos of cocaine. Street value somewhere around $300,000. That wasn't petty corruption. That wasn't a cop skimming a little off the top. That was organized crime wearing a badge. "Did you tell anyone?" "I told Webb. Thought it was an honest mistake. Thought maybe I'd misread the field report." Her voice cracked. "He thanked me, said he'd look into it. Said I had good attention to detail." 2 days later, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing stolen. Just things moved around. My underwear drawer opened. My jewelry box rifled through. A message. "Warning you to back off." I didn't back off. I went back through 6 months of evidence logs. Found 8 more discrepancies. Always drugs. Always on busts, Webb supervised. Always just a few kilos missing. Never enough to trigger an automatic audit. Just enough to make someone very rich. Jake's mind was racing. Who else did you tell? No one. I was going to, I swear I was. But I wanted to be sure first. Wanted to have all my evidence together before I went to internal affairs. I thought if I could prove it wasn't just one mistake, if I could show a pattern, someone found out you were digging. Sarah's hands were shaking. She pulled the hospital blanket up to her chin like it could protect her. Yesterday morning, Webb asked me to ride along on a domestic disturbance call. Said it would be good training. But when we got there, there was no call. Just an empty warehouse parking lot. He got out, told me to wait in the cruiser. I thought maybe he was meeting a confidential informant. Then I saw the second car pull up. Who was in it? I don't know. I couldn't see. But Webb walked over, talked to whoever it was for maybe 5 minutes. And then he came back to the cruiser, and his whole face had changed. He looked like he wanted to kill me. Jake could picture it. Webb realizing his rookie had figured it out. Webb knowing she had to disappear before she talked. Webb making the call right there, setting up the hit, while Sarah sat 10 feet away with no idea she was already dead. What happened next? He told me to drive, said we had another call across town. But his voice was wrong, too calm, too controlled. So I said I wasn't feeling well. Said I needed to go back to the station. He said fine, he'd drive. Her breath was coming faster now, reliving it. He got behind the wheel, started driving, but he wasn't going back to the station. He was heading toward the industrial district, and when I asked him where we were going, he didn't answer, just kept driving. So I reached for the radio, and that's when he hit me. Hit you. Backhanded me across the face. My head hit the window. I must have blacked out for a second because when I came to, we were off the road. The cruiser was in the ditch and Webb was gone. I tried to open my door, tried to radio for help, but everything was broken. The radio, the door locks, even my cell phone, he must have smashed it while I was unconscious. And then I heard another engine, a car pulling up behind us. Jake's hands had curled into fists without him realizing it. Webb came back. No, someone else. I heard voices, 2 men. They were arguing about something. One of them said, "Just make sure she doesn't wake up." And I knew they were going to kill me. So I played dead, held my breath, waited. They left you alive. They thought I was already dead. One of them checked my pulse, but I guess he didn't find it. Or maybe he just didn't care. He said, "She's gone. Let's get out of here before someone sees us." And then they were gone. Just drove away and left me there. The pieces were clicking into place. Webb had staged it as a single vehicle accident. Had probably planned to come back later after his alibi was established and confirm the death. But Jake had found her first. Had called in his brothers. Had turned a quiet murder into a public spectacle with 50 witnesses. Webb must have been losing his mind. Sarah, I need you to think carefully. Did you recognize either voice? Anything distinctive about them? She started to shake her head, then winced in pain. No, they stayed behind the cruiser. I never saw them. But you heard them. Male voices, you said. Young, old. Any accents? One was older. Deep voice, confident. The other one sounded nervous. Younger, maybe. He kept saying, "This is wrong, this is so wrong." But the older one told him to shut up and do what he was told. A rookie. Webb had brought along a rookie to help with the murder. Someone young enough to be scared, malleable enough to follow orders, stupid enough to think he was just helping his lieutenant. We need those names, Jake said. If we can find out who Webb's working with. You can't go after them. Sarah's voice went sharp with panic. You don't understand. Webb's not just dirty, he's connected. He's got people protecting him, people higher up. If you go after him, they'll bury you. Let them try. Jake. She grabbed his hand and her grip was surprisingly strong for someone who'd nearly died. I've spent 18 months inside that department. I know how it works. Internal affairs is a joke. Half the investigators are on Webb's payroll. The DA won't touch him without absolute proof. And even if you get proof, even if you expose him, he'll just disappear. Early retirement, medical leave, golden parachute. He'll never see a day in prison. So what do you want me to do? Just let him get away with trying to kill you. I want you to keep me alive long enough to figure out who's protecting him. Because Webb's not the top of this. He's middle management. Someone above him is running the operation. Someone with real power. Her eyes went hard. Find them. Expose them. Burn the whole thing down. That's the only way this ends. A knock on the door made them both jump. Tommy stuck his head in and his expression said something had changed. We got a problem. Webb just walked into the building. Security spotted him on the ground floor. He's on his way up. Sarah's face went white. He's coming to finish it. Not while I'm breathing. Jake stood up and his hand went automatically to the knife on his belt. Tommy, get Crusher. Tell him to lock this floor down. No one gets past the elevator without going through us first. Jake, if you attack a cop in a hospital. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just making sure Officer Chen gets the rest she needs, peacefully, without interruption. Jake looked down at Sarah. You trust me? She should have said no. Every bit of her training should have been screaming at her not to trust a Hell's Angel with a violent past and a vendetta against the police. But she looked into his eyes and found something there that her fellow officers had never given her. Protection. Real protection. The kind that didn't come with conditions or politics or corruption. I trust you, she said. Then stay quiet, stay still, and let me handle this. Jake walked out into the hallway. Crusher was already there, flanked by two more brothers. Down the hall, Jake could hear the elevator ding. Footsteps approaching. Multiple people. Webb appeared around the corner, and he wasn't alone. He had 3 officers with him, all in uniform, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Behind them, a hospital administrator in a cheap suit was practically jogging to keep up. Lieutenant Webb, Jake said, not moving from his position in front of Sarah's door. Funny seeing you here. Webb's face was a professional mask. Concerned. Authoritative. Completely in control. Mr. Morrison, I'm here to check on my officer. I'd appreciate it if you'd step aside. I'd appreciate it if you'd come back during visiting hours. Officer Chen needs her rest. I'm her training officer. I have a right to... You have a right to nothing. This is a secure floor. Hospital security can confirm. Jake looked at the administrator. Isn't that right? The administrator looked between Jake and Webb like he was watching a tennis match he didn't want to be part of. Well, actually, Officer Chen did request limited visitors. Family only. Doctor's orders. Webb's jaw tightened. I'm not family. I'm her superior officer. This isn't a social visit. Then make an appointment like everyone else. This is police business. This is a hospital. Police business doesn't override medical privacy. Webb took a step forward. The 3 officers with him shifted uncomfortably, hands dropping toward their weapons. Jake didn't move. Neither did Crusher or the other brothers. The hallway was full of tension waiting to explode. You're making a mistake, Webb said quietly. Interfering with a police investigation, intimidating witnesses, obstruction of justice. I can have all of you arrested right now. For standing in a hallway? Good luck with that, Jake crossed his arms. But while you're here, Lieutenant, maybe you can answer a question for me. Why'd you visit Officer Mitchell last night, room 218, 40 minutes? What were you two discussing? Webb's eyes flickered. Just for a second, but it was enough. Officer Mitchell is a friend. I was checking on his recovery. Funny. He discharged himself this morning, against medical advice, almost like he was scared of something, or someone. I wouldn't know anything about that. Sure you wouldn't. Just like you wouldn't know anything about evidence room discrepancies, missing cocaine, money disappearing from busts you supervised. The hallway went dead quiet. The 3 officers with Webb all turned to look at him. The administrator took a step back. Even Crusher seemed surprised Jake had just said that out loud. Webb's professional mask slipped. Just for a second, but underneath it Jake saw pure rage. That's a serious accusation, Webb said, his voice like ice. I hope you have proof. I've got a witness, your training officer. The one you tried to murder yesterday. Officer Chen was in a traffic accident, a tragic accident. And right now she's heavily medicated and confused. Whatever she told you is unreliable at best, fabricated at worst. She told me you ran her off the road, left her to die, sent 2 men back to make sure she didn't survive. Webb smiled. Actually smiled. And you believed her, a rookie with a head injury versus a 23-year veteran with a spotless record. Good luck selling that story. One of the officers with Webb cleared his throat. Young kid, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and a fresh uniform. Lieutenant, maybe we should... Shut up, Rodriguez. Rodriguez. Jake filed the name away. Young, nervous, following orders he didn't agree with. Just like the voice Sarah had described. Officer Rodriguez, Jake said, looking directly at him. You got a problem with this situation. Rodriguez's face went pale. I know, sir, no problem. Because you look like a man with a conscience. That's rare in your department, almost endangered. Morrison. Webb's voice could have cut steel. Last chance. Step aside or I arrest you for obstruction. On what grounds? I'll think of something. Jake felt Crusher tense beside him. Felt the energy in the hallway shift toward violence. This was it. The moment where everything either de-escalated or exploded. And then Sarah's door opened. She stood there in her hospital gown, one hand braced against the doorframe for support, her face pale but determined. The bandage around her head made her look fragile, but her eyes were pure steel. Lieutenant Webb, she said, and her voice carried down the hallway. I don't want to see you. Now or ever. You tried to kill me. And if you come near me again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Webb's mask shattered completely. The rage came flooding out raw and barely controlled. You don't know what you're talking about. You're confused. The accident... There was no accident. You ran me off the road. You left me to die. And then you sent your people back to finish the job. Sarah's voice got louder, stronger. I found your missing evidence, Lieutenant. I know about the cocaine. I know about the money. I know everything. You're mistaken. I have documentation. 6 months of discrepancies. 8 different busts, all supervised by you, all missing product. Sarah's hand tightened on the door frame. And I made copies, multiple copies. They're already with people you can't touch, so if anything happens to me, if I have another accident, it all comes out. It was a bluff. Jake could tell. She was barely conscious, barely alive. There was no way she had had time to make copies of anything. But Webb didn't know that. Webb only knew that his carefully constructed operation was coming apart. You're making a very serious allegation, Webb said slowly, against a decorated officer. Without proof, that's slander, career suicide. Then I guess we'll see whose career ends first. They stared at each other across the hallway. Rookie cop versus veteran lieutenant. David versus Goliath. And Jake realized he was watching something rare, someone refusing to back down even when every instinct screamed at them to run. Sarah swayed slightly and Jake moved to catch her. She leaned against him, her breathing labored, but she didn't look away from Webb. Get out, she said, before I call hospital security and report a threat against a patient. Webb looked like he wanted to kill her right there. His hand actually twitched toward his weapon. But he was surrounded by witnesses, hospital staff, his own officers, 4, hellsangels who would testify in court. Whatever he did next had to be clean, legal, defensible. This isn't over, he said finally. No. Sarah agreed. It's really not. Webb turned and walked away. His 3 officers followed and Jake watched Rodriguez glance back once. The young cop's face was twisted with guilt and fear, and something that might have been admiration. When they were gone, Sarah's legs gave out. Jake caught her and carried her back to the bed. She was shaking, adrenaline crashing hard. That was incredibly stupid, Jake said, pulling the blanket over her. And incredibly brave. Did it work? Did I scare him? You terrified him, which means he's going to come back harder, smarter. Jake looked at Crusher. We need more people, round the clock. And I want someone checking every doctor, every nurse, everyone who comes into this room. Webb's going to try to get to her through the medical staff. On it! Crusher pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway. Sarah grabbed Jake's hand again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have confronted him. I couldn't let him stand there and lie. Couldn't let him act like he was the victim. Don't apologize. You did good. Jake squeezed her hand. But you need to understand something. Webb's not going to stop. He's going to dig up everything he can find on you. Anything embarrassing. Anything compromising. He'll leak it to the media, make you look unstable, make your testimony worthless. That's how guys like him operate. Let him try. I've got nothing to hide. Everyone's got something to hide. Sarah's eyes met his. Even you. Especially me. She was quiet for a moment, studying his face. Why are you really doing this, Jake? And don't say it's because I needed help. There's more to it than that. Jake thought about lying. About giving her the easy answer. But she'd just put her life on the line by telling the truth, and she deserved the same courtesy. 15 years ago, I reported my commanding officer for selling weapons to the Taliban, Jake said. I thought I was doing the right thing. Thought the system would protect me. Thought honor mattered more than politics. He looked away. I was wrong. They buried my report. Gave my CO a promotion. And me dishonorable discharge. Blacklisted from every security job in the country. Destroyed my career to protect a criminal. I'm sorry. Don't be. I learned something valuable. The system doesn't protect people who tell the truth. It protects people with power. And if you're going to fight that system, you need to be willing to lose everything. Is that what you're doing? Fighting the system? No, I'm fighting for you. There's a difference. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. I don't understand you. You're a Hell's Angel. You're supposed to be the bad guy. Maybe I am. Or maybe the world's more complicated than good guys and bad guys. Jake stood up. Get some rest. Your parents will be here soon. And when they arrive, you tell them everything, every detail. Make sure they understand how much danger you're in. They'll want me to quit the force. Would that be so bad? It's all I ever wanted to be, a cop, someone who helps people, who protects the innocent. Her voice broke. I can't let Webb take that from me too. Jake understood. He'd felt the same way about the military, about his career, about his future, and losing it had nearly destroyed him. Then we make sure he doesn't win, Jake said. We expose him. We take him down. We make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. He walked to the door, then paused. Sarah, that thing you said about making copies, about having documentation in safe places. It was a lie. I know, but it won't be. Jake pulled out his phone. I've got a friend, used to be a cop before he went private. He knows how to pull records without leaving fingerprints. If we can get him into that evidence room, that's illegal. So is attempted murder. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see the war happening inside her, duty versus survival, rules versus justice. The cop she'd been trained to be versus the person she was becoming. If we do this, she said finally, we do it smart, no mistakes, no evidence that can be traced back to us. And we make damn sure it's enough to take Webb down, because we're only going to get one shot. Agreed. Then make the call. Jake smiled. Yes, ma'am. He stepped into the hallway and dialed Tommy. The phone rang twice before Tommy picked up. Yeah, I need you to call Prophet, tell him we're all in, whatever it takes. Jake, you sure about this? Once we cross this line, we crossed the line the moment I stopped to help her. Now we're just following through. Jake looked back at Sarah's room. That girl in there, she's one of the good ones. And if we can't protect the good ones, what's the point of any of this? Tommy sighed. Prophet's not going to like it. Prophet spent 30 years fighting dirty cops. He'll understand. What do you need? Access to the police evidence room, clean surveillance, and someone who can pull digital records without triggering any alarms. That's a tall order. You telling me we can't do it? I'm telling you it's going to cost. Money favors probably some burned bridges. You ready for that? Jake thought about Sarah's face when she'd confronted Webb. Thought about the fear in her eyes when she'd warned him they were coming back. Thought about his own face 15 years ago when the system had betrayed him. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. Then I'll make it happen. Give me 24 hours. Jake hung up and leaned against the wall. His whole body was vibrating with exhaustion and adrenaline and something else, purpose. For the first time in 15 years, he was fighting for something that mattered, something bigger than himself. Crusher appeared beside him. Her parents just pulled into the parking lot, Chinese couple late 50s driving a Prius. Should I let them up? Yeah, but check their IDs first. Webb's desperate enough to try anything. Copy that, Crusher paused. Jake, you know this is going to get ugly, right? Webb's not going to go down easy, and when he comes at us, he's going to come at us hard. I know. Just making sure you're ready. I've been ready for 15 years. Crusher nodded and headed for the elevator. Jake stayed in the hallway watching nurses move between rooms, watching families visit their loved ones, watching the normal world continue, while his own world spiraled towards something dark and dangerous. His phone buzzed. A text from Prophet. Heard what happened. We need to talk. Tonight. Church meeting. Mandatory. Church meeting. That meant the whole club. Every brother voting on whether to support Jake's crusade or cut him loose before he dragged them all down. Jake typed back, I'll be there. The elevator dinged. Two people stepped out, a Chinese man and woman, both looking exhausted and terrified. Sarah's parents. Jake recognized them from the way they moved, the way they scanned the hallway looking for their daughter's room. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, Jake called out. They turned, and the man's expression went from worried to suspicious in half a second. Who are you? Jake Morrison. I'm the one who found your daughter. I'm the one who kept her alive. Mrs. Chen's hand went to her mouth. Is she okay? She's stable. Room 312. But there's something you need to know before you see her. Jake motioned them closer. The accident wasn't an accident. It was attempted murder. By her own department. And they're going to try again. Mr. Chen's face went hard. What are you talking about? So Jake told them. Everything. The evidence room discrepancies. Webb's corruption. The attempt on Sarah's life. The threat that still hung over her head. He left nothing out. And by the time he was finished, both parents looked like they'd aged 10 years. We're taking her home, Mr. Chen said immediately. Today. She's quitting the force. This is over. You can try, but Sarah's not a quitter, and Webb knows she can testify against him. He's not going to let her walk away. Then what do we do? Mrs. Chen was crying now, quiet tears streaming down her face. How do we protect our daughter? You let me protect her, and you make damn sure she knows she's not alone, that she's got family who supports her, who believes her, because the department's going to try to make her think she's crazy, that she imagined everything, that it was just an accident. It wasn't, Mr. Chen said firmly. I believe my daughter. Good. Tell her that. She needs to hear it. Jake led them to Sarah's room and knocked softly before opening the door. Sarah was sitting up in bed, and when she saw her parents, she started crying. Real body-racking sobs that shook the hospital bed. Mrs. Chen ran to her, wrapped her in a careful hug. Mr. Chen stood beside them, his hand on his daughter's shoulder, and Jake could see the rage building behind his eyes. The protective fury of a father who just learned his child had been targeted. Jake backed out of the room, giving them privacy. In the hallway, he checked his phone. 6 missed calls from Prophet. 12 texts from other brothers. The club was mobilizing, and Jake was at the center of it. He walked to the window at the end of the hall and looked out at the parking lot below. Somewhere out there, Webb was planning his next move. Somewhere out there, corrupt cops were deciding how to eliminate the threat Sarah posed. Somewhere out there, the system Jake had once believed in was preparing to protect itself by destroying anyone who challenged it. But Jake wasn't alone. He had 50 brothers who'd stood with him in the rain. He had Tommy working connections. He had Prophet's experience and wisdom. And most importantly, he had something worth fighting for. Sarah Chen deserved justice, and Jake Morrison was going to make damn sure she got it, even if it killed him. The clubhouse smelled like motor oil and stale beer, and every set of eyes in the room was locked on Jake when he walked through the door. 53 brothers packed into the main hall, all wearing their cuts, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Prophet sat at the head of the table, his face unreadable. "You're late," Prophet said. Had to make sure Sarah's parents understood the situation. And do they? They're terrified, but they're not backing down. Neither is she. Prophet nodded slowly. "That's what we need to talk about. Sit down, Jake." Jake pulled out a chair. The silence in the room was heavy enough to crush bone. These were men who'd stood beside him in bar fights and police raids, who'd vouched for him when he'd had nothing, who'd become the only family he had left. And now he was asking them to go to war with the police department. "Brother Jake has brought us a situation," Prophet began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "A rookie cop got too close to evidence of corruption. Her training officer tried to kill her. Jake found her and called us in. Now we're protecting her while she recovers. And that protection is putting every man in this room at risk." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Not angry, just uncertain. "The cop's name is Sarah Chen," Prophet continued. "She's 24 years old, 18 months on the force. And she discovered that Lieutenant Marcus Webb, the same Webb who's been busting our operations for 5 years, has been stealing cocaine from evidence and putting it back on the streets. We're talking millions of dollars. We're talking organized corruption at the highest levels. So let her report it to Internal Affairs," someone called out from the back. "Why is this our problem?" "Because Internal Affairs is compromised," Jake said, standing up. "Because Webb's got protection from people higher up the chain. Because if we don't protect her, she's dead. And if she's dead, Webb keeps operating, keeps putting poison on our streets, keeps framing our brothers and destroying our lives. We're bikers, not cops," another voice said. "This isn't our fight. It became our fight the moment I stopped to help her." Jake's voice got harder. "You want to know why I care? Because 15 years ago, I reported my commanding officer for selling weapons to terrorists, and the system buried me for it, destroyed my career, took everything I had, and I promised myself I'd never stand by and watch that happen to someone else." The room went quiet. Every man there knew Jake's story, knew what the system had done to him. Prophet leaned forward. "Here's the situation as I see it. Webb knows we're protecting the girl. He's going to come after us. Hard. He's going to use every resource the police department has to make our lives hell. Raids, arrests, harassment. He'll try to break us financially, legally, and physically. The question we need to answer tonight is simple. Are we willing to take that heat to protect one cop?" "She's not just one cop," Jake said. "She's proof. Living, breathing proof that the system is broken. That cops like Webb are poisoning everything they touch. If we protect her, if we help her expose Webb, we're not just saving her life. We're taking down the man who's been destroying ours. Or we're starting a war we can't win," someone muttered. "We're already at war," Prophet said. "Webb's been waging it against us for 5 years. The only difference is now we're fighting back." "With what?" The speaker was Diesel, a massive enforcer with scars running down his face. "Webb's got the law on his side, guns, badges, the whole system backing him up. What have we got?" "We've got the truth," Jake said. "And we've got brothers willing to stand for it." Diesel shook his head. "Truth doesn't stop bullets, Jake." "No, but it's a start." Jake looked around the room, meeting every man's eyes. "I'm not asking you to die for this. I'm asking you to stand witness, to make sure Webb can't disappear this girl like he's disappeared God knows how many other people who got in his way. We're already protecting her. The vote tonight is whether we take the next step, whether we help her gather evidence, whether we expose Webb for what he is." "And if we vote no?" someone asked. Prophet's voice was steel. "Then Jake walks alone. Club stays neutral. We pull protection from the hospital. And whatever happens to Officer Chen happens." Jake felt his stomach drop. He'd known this was coming, but hearing it said out loud made it real. If the club voted against him, he'd lose everything. His brothers, his protection, his family, but he'd also lose the ability to protect Sarah. And that was something he couldn't live with. "I need to speak," a voice said from the back. Everyone turned. It was Tommy standing up with his phone in his hand. "I've been doing research, digging into Webb's history. And what I found, brothers, you need to hear this." Prophet gestured for him to continue. Tommy walked to the front of the room, his expression grim. Webb's been on the force for 23 years. Decorated officer, multiple commendations. By all accounts, he's a hero. Tommy paused. But I pulled arrest records from his first 10 years, compared them to conviction rates. And I found something interesting. 80% of his busts never made it to trial. Cases thrown out. Evidence contaminated. Chain of custody broken. It's been happening for over a decade. So he's incompetent, someone said. That's not news. No, he's smart. He's been running this operation for years and he's been using us as cover. Tommy pulled up something on his phone. 3 years ago, Webb led a raid on the Riverside chapter. You remember that Prophet? Prophet's face went dark. 4 of our brothers are still in lockup. Yeah, and the drugs they were convicted of possessing. According to the evidence logs, those drugs came from a bust Webb supervised 2 months earlier. He took cocaine from evidence, planted it on our brothers, and used it to justify his arrest. The room erupted. Voices shouting over each other, chairs scraping. The rage was palpable, building like pressure in a boiler. Prophet slammed his fist on the table. Quiet. The room fell silent. You're saying Webb framed our brothers? Prophet's voice was dangerously calm. I'm saying the drugs in that bust match serial numbers from an evidence bag Webb logged personally. The same bag that was later recorded as destroyed. But it wasn't destroyed. It was planted. Tommy looked around the room. Webb's been using us as his cleanup crew. Every time he steals from evidence, he plants the excess on bikers, makes himself look like a hero while covering his tracks. And we've been taking the fall for years. Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. This was bigger than Sarah. Bigger than one corrupt cop. This was systematic, calculated, evil. How many brothers? Prophet asked quietly. How many of our people are in prison because of Webb's planted evidence? Tommy's voice cracked. At least 12, maybe more. I'm still cross-referencing. The room exploded again. But this time it wasn't confusion. It was fury. Pure righteous fury. Prophet stood up, and the sheer presence of the man commanded silence. Then here's how this goes. We vote. Everyone in favor of helping Officer Chen expose Webb and his operation, raise your hand. Every hand in the room went up. Not a single holdout. Not a single dissenting voice. Motion passes, Prophet said. As of now, this club is committed to taking down Marcus Webb and everyone protecting him. Jake, your lead on this. Tommy, your research. Crusher, your security. Everyone else, your support. We do this smart. We do this clean. And we do this right. He looked around the room. Webb thinks he can use us as his scapegoats. He's about to learn what happens when you back a Hell's Angel into a corner. The brothers started cheering, fists pounding on tables, boots stomping on the floor. It was the sound of war drums, and Jake felt it vibrating in his bones. But underneath the celebration, he felt something else. Dread. Because they'd just declared war on the police department, and wars had casualties. Prophet pulled Jake aside after the meeting broke up. You understand what you just started? I understand. Webb's going to come at us with everything he's got, and we need to be ready. Prophet's eyes were hard. We need evidence, real courtroom quality evidence, the kind that can't be disputed or destroyed. Can you get it? I'm working on it. Tommy's got connections. We're going to access the evidence room, pull the digital records, match them against the physical inventory. Create a paper trail that proves Webb's been stealing for years. That's breaking and entering, illegal search. Any evidence you gather won't be admissible in court. Then we don't use it in court. We leak it to the media, create public pressure, force internal affairs to investigate whether they want to or not. Prophet considered this. You're playing with fire, brother. I've been playing with fire my whole life. I'm used to getting burned. Yeah, but this time you're not just risking yourself. You're risking the whole club. Every brother in that room just voted to trust you. Don't make them regret it. I won't. Prophet's expression softened slightly. That girl, Sarah, she means something to you. It wasn't a question. Jake didn't answer immediately. He thought about Sarah's face when she'd confronted Webb, thought about the way she'd grabbed his hand in the hospital, Thought about the trust in her eyes when she'd said she believed him. She reminds me of who I used to be, Jake said finally. Before the system broke me, she still believes in justice, still thinks the good guys can win. I want to make sure she's right. Even if it cost you everything, especially then. Prophet clapped him on the shoulder. Then let's make sure it doesn't cost her everything too. Get your evidence, build your case. And when you're ready, we'll burn Webb's world to the ground. Jake left the clubhouse at midnight, his head spinning with plans and possibilities. Tommy was waiting outside, leaning against his bike. I've got someone, Tommy said without preamble. Guy I used to run with before I went straight. He's a security consultant now, legit business. But he still knows how to bypass electronic locks and disable cameras without leaving traces. Can we trust him? He owes me his life. Literally. I pulled him out of a burning building 5 years ago. He'll do it. When? Tomorrow night, graveyard shift. Minimal staff in the building. We'll have a 4-hour window. What about Sarah? She'll need to verify the evidence. Make sure we're pulling the right files. Can she walk? She can barely stand. But yeah, I think she'd crawl if she had to. Tommy shook his head. We're asking a lot of her. She's already been nearly killed once. We bring her back into this, she could get killed for real. She's already in this. Webb knows she knows. The only way she stays alive is if we expose him before he gets another chance at her. You sure about that? Or are you just telling yourself that so you don't feel guilty about dragging a wounded cop into a black bag operation? Jake bristled. You got something to say, Tommy. Yeah. I'm saying be honest about what you're doing here. You're not just protecting her. You're using her. Using her knowledge. Using her access. Using her testimony. And if this goes sideways, she's the one who pays the price. She volunteered. She's scared and desperate. That's not the same as volunteering. Jake wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, but Tommy was right. Sarah was vulnerable, and he was leveraging that vulnerability to get what he needed. The thought made him sick. So what do you want me to do? Jake asked. Walk away? Let Webb win. I want you to be honest with yourself about the cost, and I want you to make damn sure she knows what she's getting into before we drag her deeper. Tommy kicked his bike to life and rode away, leaving Jake standing alone in the parking lot. The night air was cold, and somewhere in the distance sirens wailed. The city kept moving, kept breathing, completely unaware that war was brewing in its streets. Jake pulled out his phone and called the hospital. The nurse who answered sounded exhausted. Officer Chen's room, please. It's after visiting hours. Only immediate family. This is Jake Morrison. I'm on her approved list. It's important. A pause. Then, hold please. The line clicked, and then Sarah's voice came through, thick with sleep. Jake. Sorry to wake you. We need to talk. Is something wrong? No, everything's moving forward. We've got a plan to access the evidence room tomorrow night. Pull the records. Get proof of what Webb's been doing. He paused. But I need you to understand something. This is dangerous. If we get caught, it's not just me going down. It's you too. Your career. Your freedom. Maybe your life. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steady. I'm already dead if we don't do this. Webb's not going to stop. He can't afford to. So either we take him down, or he takes me down. Those are the only options. You could run, disappear, change your name, start over somewhere Webb can't find you. Is that what you did after your discharge? Did you run? No. I stayed and fought, and it destroyed me. Then you understand why I can't run either. Sarah's voice got stronger. I became a cop to help people, to make a difference. Running away doesn't do that. Standing up and fighting does, even if it costs me everything. Jake felt something twist in his chest. She sounded so young, so idealistic, so much like he'd been before the world had beaten that idealism out of him. Tomorrow night, he said. We move tomorrow night. I'll pick you up at the hospital at 11 p.m. Bring anything you need to verify the evidence, badge numbers, case files, whatever you've got. I'll be ready. Sarah. Jake hesitated. Thank you for trusting me, for believing this can work. Thank you for caring enough to try. She paused. My parents want me to quit, to come home, to forget all of this. Maybe you should listen to them. Would you, if you were in my position? No, I'd do exactly what you're doing, which is why I know how dangerous it is. Then I guess we're both stubborn idiots. Jake laughed despite himself. Yeah, I guess we are. He hung up and stood there for another minute staring at the phone. Tomorrow night they'd commit multiple felonies. Break into a police station. Steal evidence. Put their lives and freedom on the line for a chance, just a chance at justice. It was insane. Reckless. Probably suicidal. But it was also the right thing to do. Jake climbed onto his bike and headed home. He had 24 hours to prepare, 24 hours to get his affairs in order, 24 hours before everything changed. The next day crawled by like torture. Jake tried to sleep but couldn't. Tried to eat but his stomach rejected everything. He cleaned his apartment, serviced his bike, wrote a letter to Prophet explaining where he'd hidden documentation about the operation in case something went wrong. At 8 p.m., his phone rang. Tommy. We've got a problem. Jake's blood went cold. What kind of problem? Webb's people showed up at the hospital 2 hours ago, plain clothes. They tried to get into Sarah's room. Her parents stopped them, started making noise. Hospital security got involved. Webb's guys backed off, but Jake, they're escalating. They know time's running out. Is Sarah safe? For now. Crusher's got 6 brothers on her floor. No one's getting past them. But if Webb's people come back with badges and warrants, then we move the timeline. We go tonight, right now. Jake, we're not ready. My guy can't be in position until... Then I go alone. Give me what I need to bypass the security, and I'll handle the rest. That's suicide. You get caught, you're looking at 10 years minimum. And if I don't go, Sarah's looking at a bullet in the head. I know which risk I prefer. Tommy was silent for a moment. Then, meet me at the warehouse in 20 minutes. I'll have everything ready. Jake grabbed his cut, checked his knife, and headed out. The warehouse was an old industrial building the club used for storage. Tommy was waiting inside with a laptop and a duffel bag full of equipment. Here's the deal, Tommy said, pulling up building schematics on his screen. The evidence room is in the basement. 2 security doors. Electronic locks with biometric scanners. Cameras on every corner. You're not getting in without help. So help me. Tommy pulled a small device out of the duffel. This is a security bypass. Connects to the door's access panel and cycles through code combinations. Should get you through the first door in about 3 minutes. And the second door, that one's biometric. You'll need a handprint from an authorized user. Tommy pulled out a thin silicone glove. This is a replica of Webb's handprint. Pulled from a coffee cup he left at a crime scene 6 months ago. It's not perfect, but it might work. Might. 60% chance. Maybe 70 if you're lucky. And if it doesn't work, then the alarm goes off, and you've got about 90 seconds to get out before the building goes into lockdown. Jake took the equipment and started loading it into his pockets. What about cameras? Can't help you there. My guy's the one who knows how to loop footage without triggering alerts. Best I can do is give you this. Tommy handed him a small spray can. Temporary camera blind. Spray it on the lens and you've got about 2 minutes before it evaporates. Use it wisely. What about getting Sarah out of the hospital? Already handled. Crusher's going to move her to a safe house we've got on the east side. Old factory we converted. No one knows about it except the Core brothers. She'll be there by the time you finish the job. Does she know? Her parents are telling her now. They're not happy about it, but they understand it's necessary. Jake checked his watch. 9 p.m. The graveyard shift at the police station started at 10. He had an hour to get in position. One more thing, Tommy said. If you get caught, you don't mention the club. You don't mention me. You don't mention any of this. You say you were working alone, trying to prove your worth to Sarah or some bullshit like that. You take the fall solo. Understood. Understood. I'm serious, Jake. The club can't afford to lose protection from this. If it comes back on us, we're done. I said I understand. Tommy grabbed his arm. Be careful, brother. Webb's people might be watching the station. They might be expecting something like this. Then I'll have to be smarter than them. Jake left the warehouse and rode toward downtown. His heart was hammering against his ribs and his hands felt slick inside his gloves. This was it. The point of no return. The police station was a modern building, all glass and steel, designed to look welcoming and professional. Jake parked his bike 3 blocks away and approached on foot, keeping to the shadows. The night shift was just changing over, officers coming and going through the main entrance. Jake circled around to the side entrance, the one used by maintenance and deliveries. The door was locked, but Tommy's bypass device made short work of it. 3 minutes later, Jake was inside, moving through empty hallways toward the basement stairs. The building felt different at night. Quieter, more dangerous. Every footstep seemed to echo too loudly. Every camera felt like it was tracking his movement. Jake reached the basement and found the first security door. He attached the bypass device and waited while it cycled through codes. 2 minutes. 3. His nerves were screaming at him to run to get out before someone noticed. Then the lock clicked. The door opened. Jake slipped through and found himself in a long hallway lined with storage rooms. At the end was the second door, the one with the biometric scanner. He pulled out the silicone glove and fitted it over his hand. The texture felt wrong, too smooth, too artificial. But it was his only shot. Jake pressed his gloved hand against the scanner and held his breath. Nothing happened. He tried again, adjusting the angle. Still nothing. Third time. He pressed harder, making sure every part of the artificial print made contact with the scanner. The door beeped. A light turned green, and the lock released. Jake's knees went weak with relief. He pulled the door open and stepped into the evidence room. Rows and rows of shelves stretched out before him, filled with boxes and bags and sealed containers. Everything was meticulously labeled, organized by case number and date. Somewhere in here was proof of Webb's corruption. Jake just had to find it. He pulled out his phone and started photographing everything. Case numbers, evidence logs, inventory sheets. He worked methodically, moving down the aisles, documenting everything he could. That's when he heard footsteps above him. Someone was in the building. Multiple someones from the sound of it. And they were moving toward the basement stairs. Jake's pulse spiked. He killed his phone's light and pressed himself against the shelves, trying to make himself invisible. The footsteps got closer, voices now talking in low tones. Sure he came this way? Security footage showed someone entering the side door 20 minutes ago. Never came back out. Webb's voice. Jake would recognize it anywhere. Could be homeless. Could be a drunk. Could be Morrison. Webb's footsteps stopped at the top of the basement stairs. He's stupid enough to try something like this. Probably thinks he's helping his little cop friend. Jake's mind raced. The door behind him was still open. If Webb came down here, he'd see it immediately. There was no way to close it without making noise. No way to hide. He was trapped. Want me to call it in? The second voice asked. Get back up down here. Webb was quiet for a moment. Then, no. If Morrison's down there, I want to handle him personally. Radio silence. No witnesses. The footsteps started down the stairs. Slow, methodical. The sound of a predator stalking prey. Jake looked around desperately. There had to be another way out. A service door. A ventilation shaft. Anything. But there was nothing. Just shelves and evidence and the single exit where Webb was now standing. Jake's hand went to the knife on his belt. If it came to violence, he'd defend himself. But killing a cop, even a dirty cop, would make him a murderer in the eyes of the law. Everything they'd worked for would be destroyed. Webb's shadow appeared on the wall. He was 10 feet away. 5 feet. Then a phone rang. Not Jake's. Webb's. Webb answered it with an irritated growl. What? Jake couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he watched Webb's posture change, stiffen, tense. When? Webb's voice was sharp now, urgent. How many of them, goddammit? I'm on my way. The footsteps retreated, back up the stairs, moving fast now. What's going on? the second voice asked. The girl. She's gone. Hospital says she checked out an hour ago. AMA discharge. And guess who signed her out? Webb's voice was vibrating with rage. Jake Morrison. Where'd they take her? If I knew that I'd already be there, get everyone on this, every informant, every contact. I want that girl found, tonight. The voices faded as they moved away from the basement. Jake waited another full minute, listening to the silence before he dared to move. His hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone and resumed photographing evidence. He worked faster now, less careful, knowing time was running out. Webb would be back once he realized Sarah's disappearance was a distraction. Jake found what he was looking for on the third aisle. Evidence bags from busts Webb had supervised, all marked as destroyed, but still sitting on the shelf. Cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, millions of dollars worth of drugs that were supposed to be gone. He photographed everything, the bags, the labels, the discrepancies between the physical evidence and the digital logs Tommy had pulled. It was all here. Every bit of proof they needed. Jake's phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. Webb just left the building. You've got 5 minutes. Move. Jake didn't need to be told twice. He backed out of the evidence room, pulled the door closed behind him, and sprinted for the stairs. His boots pounded against concrete as he raced through the hallway, through the side entrance, out into the night air. He didn't stop running until he reached his bike. Didn't stop moving until he was miles away from the station, his heart hammering and his lungs burning. But he'd done it. He'd gotten the evidence. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The safe house was a converted factory on the east side, the kind of place that looked abandoned from the outside but hummed with life once you got past the steel doors. Jake found Sarah sitting at a makeshift table, her parents hovering nearby with worried expressions that hadn't left their faces since the hospital. She looked pale but alert, dressed in borrowed clothes that hung loose on her frame. You got it? Sarah asked before Jake even had his helmet off. He pulled out his phone and set it on the table. Everything. Evidence bags that should have been destroyed, digital logs that don't match physical inventory, 6 months of discrepancies. It's all here. Sarah grabbed the phone with shaking hands and started scrolling through the photos. Her expression shifted from hope to disbelief to cold fury as she absorbed what she was seeing. This is it, she breathed. This is enough to bury him. It's enough to start an investigation, Jake corrected. But we can't use it in court. I obtained it illegally. Any lawyer worth their salt will get it thrown out before trial even starts. Then what was the point? The point is leverage. We leak this to the press. Create enough public pressure that Internal Affairs has to investigate whether they want to or not. Force Webb's protectors to cut him loose before he drags them down too. Sarah's father stepped forward. And what happens to my daughter when you do that? She becomes the star witness in a corruption case. You think Webb will just let that happen? He doesn't have a choice. Once this goes public, killing her becomes too obvious, too risky. Right now, she's a liability he can eliminate quietly. Once everyone knows what she knows, she becomes untouchable. You're gambling with her life, Mrs. Chen said, her voice breaking. I'm trying to save it. This is the only way she stays alive long enough to testify. The room fell silent. Sarah was still staring at the phone, her finger swiping through image after image of Webb's corruption. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet but determined. We do it, she said. We release everything tonight. Sarah, her father started. Dad, they already tried to kill me once. They're going to keep trying until either I'm dead or they're exposed. Those are the only 2 options. She stood up, swaying slightly, and Jake moved to steady her. I didn't become a cop to hide when things got dangerous. I became a cop to fight for what's right. This is me fighting. Her father looked like he wanted to argue, but then he looked at his daughter's face, saw the steel there, and slowly nodded. Then we fight together, as a family. Jake felt something catch in his throat. This was what he'd lost 15 years ago. Family who stood beside you even when the world turned against you. He'd found it again in the club, but seeing the Chens rally around their daughter reminded him of what he'd given up. We need a reporter, Tommy said from the doorway. Jake hadn't heard him arrive. Someone with enough credibility that people will believe the story. Someone Webb can't intimidate or buy off. "I know someone," Sarah said. "Diana Torres. She's a captain in the department. Only honest command officer left. She's been trying to investigate Webb for years, but he's always had protection from higher up. If we give her this evidence..." "She's still a cop," Jake interrupted. "How do we know she won't just turn it over to internal affairs to Webb's people?" "Because she's my mentor. She's the reason I joined the force. And she's the only person in that building I trust completely." Sarah pulled out a phone, not her own, something disposable Tommy must have given her. "Let me call her. Let me bring her in on this." Jake looked at Prophet, who'd been standing silent in the corner. The older man considered for a moment, then nodded. "Make the call, but you do it on speaker. We all hear what she says." Sarah dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered, sharp and alert despite the late hour. "Torres." "Captain, it's Sarah Chen." Silence. Then, "Jesus Christ. Sarah, where are you? Webb's got half the department looking for you. He's saying you're confused, possibly suffering from head trauma, might be a danger to yourself." "I'm fine. And I'm not confused. Webb tried to kill me, Captain. He ran me off the road and left me to die because I found evidence of his corruption." "Sarah, that's a serious allegation." "I have proof. Photos of evidence that should have been destroyed. Digital logs that prove Webb's been stealing drugs from seizures for years. And I'm ready to go public with all of it." Torres was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. "Where did you get these photos? Does it matter?" "It matters if you obtained them illegally. It matters if whoever helped you broke into a police station and committed multiple felonies." Jake met Sarah's eyes. They'd reached the moment of truth. Either Torres was going to help them or she was going to turn them in. "I had help," Sarah said carefully. "From people outside the department. People who have their own reasons for wanting Webb taken down." "The Hells Angels." It wasn't a question. "Sarah, please tell me you're not working with a biker gang." "I'm working with the people who saved my life when my own department tried to end it." "And you trust them?" Sarah looked at Jake, at Prophet, at Tommy and Crusher and all the brothers who'd stood guard over her hospital room, who'd risked everything to protect her, who'd committed crimes to get her the evidence she needed. "More than I trust anyone wearing a badge right now. Yes." Torres exhaled slowly. "Where are you? I'm coming to you. Alone. And we're going to figure this out before Webb does something we can't undo." Sarah gave her the address and hung up. Her hands were trembling. "She'll come. And she'll help. I know she will. Or she'll bring Webb and a SWAT team," Crusher muttered. "We'll know in about 20 minutes, Prophet said. She's coming from downtown. That's how long it'll take her to get here. Tommy, I want eyes on every approach to this building. Diesel, you're on the roof with a radio. Anyone shows up who isn't Torres alone, we evacuate through the back tunnels." "There are back tunnels?" Sarah's father asked. "There are always back tunnels, Mr. Chen. Rule 1 of survival: always have an exit." The next 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Jake watched Sarah pace the room, her parents sitting together on an old couch, holding hands like they were waiting for surgery results. Prophet stood by the window watching the street. Tommy monitored security cameras on his laptop. At exactly 11:47 p.m., Diesel's voice crackled over the radio. "Single vehicle approaching, black sedan, 1 occupant, female, matches the description. Let her park. Let her approach the door. Make sure she's alone before we let her in," Prophet ordered. They watched through the security monitors as Captain Diana Torres, late 50s gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing civilian clothes, got out of her car and walked to the entrance. She looked around once, taking in the neighborhood, then knocked on the door. Crusher opened it and Torres stepped inside. Her eyes swept the room, cataloging everything. The bikers in their leather cuts, the makeshift command center, the Chen family huddled together. She took it all in without expression, then focused on Sarah. "You look terrible," Torres said. "I feel worse." "Good, because you're going to feel even worse when I tell you what you've walked into." Torres pulled out her phone and held it up. Webb filed a missing persons report on you 3 hours ago. Claims you're mentally unstable due to your head injury. Claims you might be suffering from delusions or hallucinations. He's got doctors from the hospital ready to testify that you shouldn't have been discharged. I discharged myself. Against medical advice, which plays right into his narrative. Torres looked at Jake. And you, Jake Morrison. Dishonorable discharge. Known associate of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Multiple arrests for assault weapons possession and intimidation. You're the perfect villain for Webb's story. The bad guy who kidnapped a confused rookie cop and filled her head with conspiracy theories. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's true, Jake said. Prove it. Show me this evidence you claim to have. Sarah handed over Jake's phone. Torres scrolled through the photos, her expression shifting from skepticism to shock to barely contained rage. Son of a bitch, she whispered. He's been doing this for years, right under our noses, right under my nose. Can you help us? Sarah asked. Torres looked up and her eyes were blazing. Help you, Sarah? I'm going to do more than help you. I'm going to bury Marcus Webb so deep he'll need a mining team to find daylight. She looked at Prophet. But I need your cooperation, all of you. Because if we're going to take down a decorated lieutenant with 23 years on the force, we need to do it by the book. No more break-ins, no more illegal evidence gathering. We do this clean. How? Jake asked. You said internal affairs is compromised, that Webb's got protection. Internal affairs, yes. But I've got contacts at the FBI, field agents I trust, people who've been looking for a way into this department for years because they suspected corruption but couldn't prove it. Torres pulled out her own phone. If I bring them this evidence, if I bring them a witness willing to testify, they'll open a formal investigation, federal investigation. Webb's local protection won't mean anything against the feds. And Sarah, Mrs. Chen asked, what happens to my daughter? Witness protection, federal custody. She'll be safe while the investigation proceeds. Torres looked at Sarah. But you need to understand what you're signing up for. Webb's not the top of this. These evidence room numbers, the volume we're talking about, he couldn't move that much product alone. He's got partners, distribution network, maybe other cops, maybe organized crime connections. When the feds start pulling on this thread, they're going to unravel something big. And everyone involved is going to want you dead before you can testify. Sarah's face went pale, but she didn't hesitate. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. Then we move now. Tonight. I call my FBI contact. We get you into protective custody before Webb realizes what's happening. Torres looked at Jake. And you need to disappear. Take your club and get out of the city. Because when this breaks, Webb's going to come after everyone who helped Sarah, and he's not going to be subtle about it. I'm not running, Jake said. Then you're a fool. Webb's desperate. Desperate men do desperate things. He'll plant evidence on you, frame you for crimes you didn't commit, maybe even arrange an accident. You think those brothers in prison because of his planted drugs were his first victims? You think Sarah was his first attempted murder? Men like Webb leave bodies behind them. Don't add yours to the count. She's right, Jake, Prophet said quietly. We've got what we needed. We exposed the corruption. Now we need to get out of the blast radius before the explosion. Jake looked at Sarah. She was watching him with those same trusting eyes, the same faith she'd shown when she'd grabbed his hand in the hospital. He'd promised to protect her, promised to see this through. I'll go, he said. But not until Sarah's safe. Not until I know the feds have her and Webb can't touch her. Torres nodded. Fair enough. Give me 2 hours. I'll have agents here by 2 a.m. Until then, everyone stays put. No one leaves. No phone calls. No contact with the outside world. Understood? Everyone nodded. Torres stepped away to make her call, and Jake found himself standing next to Sarah again. She looked exhausted, running on fumes and determination. You should rest, he told her. I'm too wired to rest. Too scared, if I'm being honest. She laughed, but it came out shaky. I keep thinking about what happens next. Federal investigation. Testimony. Maybe years of my life consumed by this case. And for what? To take down one corrupt cop? To take down everyone he's working with? To save the brothers he framed? To make sure no other rookie cop gets run off the road for asking questions? Jake put his hand on her shoulder. You're doing something brave, Sarah, something important. Don't lose sight of that. I wouldn't be doing any of it without you. You know that, right? If you hadn't stopped that night, if you hadn't called your brothers, if you hadn't protected me, I'd be dead. Just another cop who died in the line of duty. Tragic accident. Sad story. Forgotten in 6 months. You give me too much credit. I don't give you enough. Sarah's voice cracked. Everyone told me to be afraid of people like you. The academy, my training officers, the other cops. They said bikers were criminals, gang members, violent thugs who'd hurt me first chance they got. And you know what? You've been kinder to me, more protective of me, more honest with me than anyone wearing a badge. Jake didn't know what to say to that. 15 years of anger at the system, 15 years of bitterness and resentment, and this rookie cop had just validated every feeling he'd been told was wrong. The system failed you, Sarah continued, just like it failed me, just like it's failed everyone. Webb hurt, but maybe we can fix it. Maybe exposing him is the start of something bigger, something better. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Torres came back, her expression grim. We've got a problem. My FBI contact just informed me that Deputy Chief Russo placed a bolo on Sarah an hour ago. Be on the lookout. Says she's armed and dangerous, a threat to herself and others. That's insane, Mr. Chen said. She's injured. She's unarmed. She's a liability that Russo wants eliminated. He's Webb's mentor, his protector. If Sarah goes public, Russo goes down too. Torres pulled up something on her phone. It gets worse. The bolo includes a warning that Sarah might be in the company of armed gang members. Gives officers authorization to use deadly force if they encounter resistance. The room went cold. Jake felt his blood turn to ice water in his veins. They're going to kill her, he said. They're setting up a situation where any cop who finds her can claim self-defense when they pull the trigger. That's the play, Torres confirmed. Which means we can't wait for the feds. We need to move now. Get Sarah somewhere safe where local cops can't reach her. Where? Prophet asked. Russo's bolo goes statewide. Every cop in California will be looking for her. Then we take her out of California. Torres looked at Jake. Your club. You've got chapters in other states, right? Connections in Nevada, Arizona. We've got chapters everywhere, but moving Sarah across state lines, that's kidnapping, federal crime. So is attempted murder, which is what Webb will do if he finds her first. Torres's voice was hard. We're past the point of worrying about legalities. We're in survival mode now. Get her out of the state. Keep her alive. Give the FBI time to build their case and issue their own protective custody order. Once that happens, she's untouchable. How long will that take? Mrs. Chen asked. 3 days, maybe 4. They need to verify the evidence, interview witnesses, get authorization from the DOJ. It's a process. 3 days, Sarah repeated. I have to hide from every cop in California for 3 days. Can your people do it? Torres asked Prophet. Can you keep her hidden that long? Prophet looked at Jake. A whole conversation happened in that glance. This was beyond anything the club had done before. This was actively harboring a fugitive from the police. If they got caught, every brother involved would face serious prison time. But Prophet had stood in that rain with 50 brothers and sworn to protect Sarah, and Hell's Angels didn't break their word. We can do it, Prophet said. We've got a ranch outside Barstow, middle of nowhere, private property, no neighbors for 20 miles. We'll take her there. Keep her safe until the feds issue their order. I'm going too, Mrs. Chen said immediately. Ma'am, that might not be safe, Torres started. I don't care. She's my daughter. I'm not leaving her alone with strangers, no matter how honorable their intentions. Then we all go, Mr. Chen added. Family stays together. Prophet nodded. Fine, but we leave in 30 minutes. Grab whatever you need. Once we're on the road, we don't stop until we reach the ranch. Everyone scattered. Sarah's parents went to gather their things. Tommy started loading supplies into vehicles. Crusher coordinated with the brothers who'd be making the run. Jake found himself alone with Torres. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You care about her," Torres said. It wasn't a question. "She's a good person. Good people deserve protection." "That's not what I asked." Torres stepped closer. Jake Morrison, 38 years old, decorated veteran turned outlaw biker. You've spent 15 years hating cops, hating the system, and now you're risking everything to save one rookie officer. Why? Jake thought about his answer, thought about all the reasons he'd given himself. Justice, redemption, revenge against Webb. But underneath all of it was something simpler. Because she reminds me of who I used to be, before the system broke me. She still has hope, still believes the good guys can win, and I need to believe she's right. Jake met Torres's eyes. "I lost my faith 15 years ago when my CO destroyed my career. Sarah's giving me a chance to get it back, to prove that sometimes honor still means something, even in a world this corrupt." Torres was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and put her hand on his shoulder. "For what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. And when this is over, when Webb's in prison and Sarah's safe, I'm going to make sure people know what you did. Make sure they understand not all heroes wear badges. I'm not a hero, Captain. Maybe not, but you're close enough for government work." She pulled back. "Get her to that ranch, keep her alive, and when the feds are ready, I'll come get her myself. You have my word." Torres left and Jake felt the weight of what they were about to do settle over him. They were going to war with the police department, with the system itself, and wars had casualties. He just hoped Sarah wouldn't be one of them. At 1:15 a.m., a convoy of 6 motorcycles and 2 SUVs pulled out of the safe house and headed east toward Barstow. Sarah rode in the lead SUV with her parents and Prophet. Jake rode point on his Harley with Crusher and 4 other brothers flanking the vehicles. The city lights faded behind them as they hit the highway. Traffic was light at this hour, just long-haul truckers and late-night travelers. The desert stretched out on both sides, dark and endless. Jake kept checking his mirrors, watching for police lights, watching for tail cars, watching for any sign that Webb had found them. But the road stayed clear. Mile after mile disappeared under their wheels, and slowly Jake started to believe they might actually make it. That's when his phone rang. Prophet's number. "Talk to me," Jake said into his headset. "We've got company. Black sedan, been following us since the city limits, maintaining distance but matching our speed." Prophet's voice was calm but alert. "Could be nothing. Could be Webb's people." "How many occupants?" "Can't tell. Tinted windows." Jake dropped back, letting the convoy pass him until he was riding parallel to the black sedan. He couldn't see through the windows, couldn't identify the driver, but he could feel eyes on him, watching, tracking. "Run the plate," Jake said. "Already did. Registered to a shell company. Same company that owns 3 cars in Webb's motor pool." Jake's blood went cold. It's him, or his people. They found us. "What do you want to do?" "Keep driving. Don't change speed. Don't acknowledge them. Let's see what they do." For 5 miles, nothing happened. The sedan just followed, maintaining its distance. Then it started to close the gap. 50 yards, 40, 30. "They're making a move," Prophet said. Jake accelerated, pulling ahead of the convoy. His hand went to his phone, ready to call Torres, ready to call for backup. But what could she do? They were in the middle of nowhere, 50 miles from the nearest town. If Webb's people wanted to make a move, there was no one to stop them. The sedan pulled alongside the lead SUV. Jake watched in his mirror as the passenger window rolled down, and then he saw the gun. "Get down!" Jake screamed into his headset. "They've got a weapon! Everyone down!" The night erupted in gunfire. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness as bullets tore into the SUV's side panels. Sarah's mother was screaming. Prophet was shouting orders. The brothers on bikes were swerving, trying to avoid the line of fire. Jake yanked his bike around in a tight U-turn and accelerated toward the sedan. He had no weapon, no plan, just the desperate need to stop them before they killed Sarah. The sedan's driver saw him coming and swerved hard. Jake followed, matching the movement, closing the distance. 20 feet. 10. Then the sedan's brake lights flared. The car decelerated hard and Jake barely avoided rear-ending it. He swerved around and the sedan accelerated again, putting distance between them. But the damage was done. The SUV's tires were blown out. Prophet was fighting the wheel as the vehicle fishtailed across the highway and finally ground to a halt on the shoulder. The sedan circled back, coming in for another pass, another burst of gunfire. Jake positioned his bike between the sedan and the SUV, used himself as a shield, daring them to shoot through him to get to Sarah. The sedan slowed. The passenger window was still down and Jake could see the barrel of an assault rifle pointing at him. This was it. This was how it ended. On a dark highway in the middle of nowhere, dying to protect a cop he barely knew. But he didn't move, didn't flinch. And then from behind him came the roar of engines, not motorcycles, something bigger, louder. Jake glanced in his mirror and saw 3 pickup trucks barreling down the highway, coming from the direction they'd just traveled. Big trucks with roll bars and off-road lights. And standing in the beds holding rifles were men in hellsangels cuts. Reinforcements. Prophet must have called them when they'd first spotted the tail car. The sedan's driver saw them too. Saw he was outnumbered and outgunned. The car accelerated, hard tires screaming, and disappeared into the night. The pickup trucks pulled up alongside the convoy. Brothers jumped out, checking for injuries, securing the perimeter. Jake killed his engine and ran to the SUV. Sarah was on the floor of the back seat, her mother covering her with her own body. Her father was in front with Prophet, both of them shaken but unhurt. "Everyone okay?" Jake pulled the door open. "We're alive," Sarah said, her voice muffled. "But the tires—" "We'll swap vehicles. Get you into one of the trucks. They're armored, bulletproof glass. Webb's people won't get another shot." They transferred Sarah and her parents to the lead pickup truck. The brothers from the other vehicles formed a protective convoy around them. And within 10 minutes, they were back on the road, moving faster now, putting distance between them and Webb's people. Jake rode beside the truck, his eyes scanning the darkness. His heart was still hammering. His hands were still shaking. They'd come within seconds of losing Sarah, within seconds of watching her die. But they'd survived. For now. The ranch appeared on the horizon at 4:30 a.m., just as the first hints of dawn were breaking. It was exactly what Prophet had described: middle of nowhere, surrounded by empty desert, secure and defensible. They pulled through the gate, and Jake finally allowed himself to breathe. Sarah was safe. For 3 more days, she just had to stay safe. And then the feds would come, and Webb's world would burn. The ranch house smelled like coffee and gun oil when Jake walked in at dawn. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring at nothing. Her parents had finally collapsed from exhaustion an hour ago, but she couldn't sleep. Jake understood. Adrenaline didn't just switch off because you were safe. "You should rest," he said, pouring himself coffee. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that gun pointing at us, hear the bullets hitting the car." Her hands were shaking around her mug. "My mom covered me with her body, Jake. She was ready to die for me. That's what parents do. She shouldn't have to. None of you should have to." Sarah looked up and her eyes were red-rimmed. "This is my fight, my choice to stand up to Webb, but everyone else is paying the price." Jake pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "You didn't choose this. Webb chose it when he decided to run drugs, when he decided to frame innocent people, when he decided to kill anyone who got in his way. All you did was refuse to look the other way. That's not a crime. That's courage. Courage feels a lot like stupidity right now. Sometimes there's not much difference." Jake took a drink of coffee, letting the heat burn away some of his own exhaustion. 3 more days. Torres says the FBI will have their protective custody order by then. You just have to survive 3 more days. And then what I testify against Webb, against Russo, against everyone in the department who protected them. And then I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder waiting for someone to finish what Webb started. Or you spend the rest of your life knowing you did the right thing, knowing you saved lives, knowing you made a difference. Jake leaned forward. "Those brothers Prophet mentioned, The ones Webb framed with planted evidence. They're real people, Sarah. Real lives destroyed because Webb needed scapegoats. You're giving them a chance at freedom. At justice. That's worth fighting for. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, tell me about them. The brothers. The ones in prison. So Jake did. He told her about Marcus, a father of 3 who was serving 15 years for drugs that weren't his. About Antonio, a veteran with a Purple Heart who'd lost his benefits and his dignity. About Kyle, barely 21, whose life had been destroyed before it really started. He told her about their families, their kids who grew up without fathers, their wives who worked 3 jobs trying to survive. By the time he finished, Sarah was crying quietly. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know it was that bad." Most people don't. They see the arrests, the convictions, the news reports about dangerous criminals taken off the streets. They don't see what happens after. Don't see the innocent people crushed by a system that's supposed to protect them. I'm going to fix it. When I testify, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what Webb did. To them, to me, to everyone. Sarah wiped her eyes. I'm going to burn his whole operation to the ground. Jake smiled despite himself. There's the fighter I met in that hospital room. She never left. She was just scared for a minute. Prophet appeared in the doorway, his phone in hand and his expression grim. We've got a situation. Jake was on his feet instantly. What kind of situation? Torres just called. The bolo on Sarah got upgraded. Federal warrants issued an hour ago. Russo's claiming Sarah stole evidence from the police station, that she's working with a criminal organization to blackmail the department. He's got U.S. Marshals involved now. U.S. Marshals? Sarah's face went white. But Torres said the FBI... The FBI's still building their case, but Russo moved faster, got ahead of them. Now there's conflicting federal agencies looking for you. FBI wants to protect you. Marshals want to arrest you. Can they do that? Jake asked. Can Russo just manipulate federal agencies? He's deputy chief of a major city police department. He's got connections, friends in high places, and he's using them all to make sure Sarah never gets a chance to testify. Jake started pacing. His mind was racing through options, discarding them as fast as they appeared. The ranch was secure, but it wouldn't hold against federal agents. They needed to move Sarah again, somewhere Russo couldn't reach. What about Mexico? Jake said suddenly. We get her across the border. Keep her safe there until the FBI sorts this out. That's international flight, Prophet said. Makes her look guilty. Makes everything she's said look like lies. Then what? We just wait here for the marshals to show up. We accelerate the timeline. Prophet looked at Sarah. Torres says the FBI can have you in protective custody within 12 hours if you come in voluntarily. Meet them at a secure location. Make your statement. Get official protection before the marshals even know where you are. Where? Sarah asked. Federal building in downtown LA. Torres will be there. FBI agents she trusts. They'll take you into custody and Russo won't be able to touch you. It's a trap, Jake said immediately. Webb knows we'll try something like this. He'll be waiting. Maybe. But what choice do we have? Prophet's voice was steady. We stay here. Federal agents find us eventually. We run Sarah looks guilty, and we're all fugitives. We go in voluntarily. At least we control the when and how. Sarah stood up, the blanket falling away. Then we go, now, before Russo can set up whatever ambush he's planning. Sarah. Her father appeared in the doorway, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. You can't. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous, Dad. Staying here is dangerous. Running is dangerous. But surrendering to the FBI gives me the best chance at actually surviving long enough to testify. She walked to him and took his hands. I have to do this. You know I do. Mrs. Chen appeared beside her husband. Then we're coming with you. No, you stay here. Stay safe. If something goes wrong, if Webb gets to me before the FBI does, I need to know you're okay. Sarah, please, Mom. I can't do what needs to be done if I'm worried about you getting hurt. Sarah's voice broke. Let me do this. Let me finish what I started. Her parents looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Then her father nodded slowly. You come back to us, he said. Whatever happens, you come back. I will, I promise. Jake grabbed his keys. I'll drive her. Prophet, you coordinate with Torres. Make sure the FBI is ready when we arrive. Crusher, I want 2 bikes as escort. Anyone tries to stop us, they'll have to go through all of us. Jake, you can't come. Sarah put her hand on his arm. Webb knows your face, knows your bike. You show up at a federal building and he'll use it as proof we're working together. That I'm compromised. I'm not letting you walk in there alone. You have to. This is the part I do by myself. Sarah's eyes were fierce. You saved my life. You protected me. You gave me the evidence I needed. But the testimony, the statement, that's all me. That's the one thing no one can do for me. Jake wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse. But he looked at her face and saw the determination there. The steel. This was her fight now. Her choice. Okay, he said quietly. But I'm getting you to the city limits. After that, Torres takes over. Deal. They loaded into one of the pickup trucks 30 minutes later. Sarah in the passenger seat, Jake driving Crusher, and 2 brothers on bikes riding escort. Prophet stayed at the ranch with Sarah's parents, coordinating with Torres and monitoring police communications. The drive back to LA took 2 hours. Jake spent every minute checking mirrors, watching for tail cars, expecting Webb's people to appear at any moment. But the road stayed clear. Too clear. This feels wrong, Jake said as they hit the city limits. Webb should have tried something by now. Maybe he doesn't know where we are yet. He knew last night. He found us on the highway. Why wouldn't he find us now? Sarah didn't have an answer. Neither did Jake. But the wrongness of it sat in his gut like a stone. Torres was waiting at the rendezvous point, a parking garage 3 blocks from the federal building. She was alone, dressed in civilian clothes, looking as tense as Jake felt. The FBI's ready, she said without preamble. They've got a secure room set up. 3 agents standing by to take your statement. Once you're inside the building, you're untouchable. What about Webb? Sarah asked. What about Russo? They don't know you're coming. I didn't tell anyone except the FBI agents I trust. No one in the department knows. Torres looked at Jake. This is where you say goodbye. Sarah goes in alone from here. Jake looked at Sarah. She was pale but composed, ready. You've got this, he told her. I know. She squeezed his hand. Thank you. For everything. For seeing past the badge. For protecting me when you had every reason not to. For believing me when no one else would. You earned it. Every bit of it. Jake's throat was tight. You're one of the good ones, Sarah Chen. Don't ever forget that. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Then she got out of the truck and walked toward Torres. That's when Jake saw them. 2 men in suits stepping out of a sedan parked 1 level down, moving with purpose, moving toward Sarah. Torres, Jake shouted. Behind you. Torres spun her hand, going to her weapon. But the men already had their badges out, U.S. Marshals, moving fast. Sarah Chen, you're under arrest for theft of evidence and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Put your hands up, now. No, Sarah backed up. I'm here voluntarily. I'm surrendering to the FBI. You're surrendering to us. Hands up or we will use force. Torres stepped between them. I'm Captain Diana Torres, LAPD. This woman is under my protection. She has an appointment with FBI agents inside that building. Step aside, Captain. This is federal business. So is witness protection. Sarah Chen is a federal witness. You arrest her, you're interfering with an FBI investigation. The marshals hesitated. Behind them, Jake saw more movement. More sedans pulling into the garage. More men in suits. Too many. This was a full team. Russo hadn't just sent marshals, he'd sent an army. Sarah, run, Jake yelled. Get to the federal building. Go! Sarah took off running. Torres followed, providing cover. The marshals started after them, and Jake threw himself out of the truck, blocking their path. Move, one of the marshals shouted. Make me! The marshal went for his weapon, and Jake hit him. Not hard enough to cause real damage, just hard enough to buy Sarah time. The other marshals swarmed him. Jake fought like his life depended on it, taking down 2 more before they overwhelmed him. Hands grabbed him, forced him down. Zip ties cut into his wrists, but through it all he could see Sarah running, Torres beside her. They'd made it out of the garage, made it onto the street, just 2 more blocks to the federal building. Then Jake saw the black car pulling up alongside them, saw the window roll down, saw Webb in the passenger seat, his face twisted with rage. "No!" Jake screamed, fighting against the marshals holding him. "Sarah, look out!" But his warning came too late. Webb's driver cut them off. Torres tried to draw her weapon and Webb shot her. The sound echoed through the parking garage. Torres went down. Sarah screamed, and Webb got out of the car. "End of the road, Officer Chen," Webb said, his voice carrying across the distance. "Should have died in that ditch. Would have saved everyone a lot of trouble." "You won't get away with this," Sarah said, but her voice was shaking. "There are witnesses. Cameras. The FBI knows I'm here." The FBI knows a confused rookie cop with a head injury tried to run from lawful arrest and got caught in crossfire. Tragic accident. Line of duty death. I'll probably give the eulogy at your funeral. Webb raised his weapon. "Any last words?" Sarah looked back at the parking garage, at Jake being held by marshals, at the life she'd tried to save slipping away. Then she looked at Webb, and something in her expression changed. The fear disappeared, replaced by something harder, something unbreakable. "Yeah," she said. "I've got last words. You lose." Webb laughed. "I'm holding the gun, sweetheart. How exactly do I lose? Because I'm wearing a wire. Have been since the ranch. Everything you just said. Everything you just did. The FBI heard all of it." Webb's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check the rooftop. 3rd building. See that reflection? That's a telephoto lens. FBI surveillance team. They've been watching this whole time." Sarah's voice got stronger. "You shot a police captain in front of federal agents, Webb. You threatened a federal witness. You're not walking away from this. None of you are." Webb looked up, saw the glint Sarah had mentioned, and his face went from confident to panicked in half a second. "You stupid little—" The federal building's doors burst open. FBI agents in tactical gear poured out weapons, drawn, shouting commands. The marshals who'd been holding Jake suddenly let go, backing away with their hands up, realizing they'd been played. Webb tried to run, made it 3 steps before agents tackled him to the ground. Russo appeared from one of the sedans, trying to blend in with the marshals, but Sarah pointed at him. "Deputy Chief Frank Russo. He's Webb's partner. He issued the warrants to stop me from testifying." More agents moved in. Russo didn't even try to run, just stood there, the color draining from his face as handcuffs closed around his wrists. Torres was on the ground, bleeding from a shoulder wound. Paramedics were already working on her. She looked up at Sarah and smiled. "Good work, kid." Jake ran to Sarah. The zip ties had been cut by an apologetic marshal who now understood exactly what kind of operation he'd been part of. Sarah fell into Jake's arms, and for the first time in days, she let herself cry. Real body-shaking sobs of relief and exhaustion and overwhelming emotion. "You did it," Jake whispered into her hair. "You beat him. We did it. All of us." Sarah pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Is Torres? She'll be fine. Shoulder wound. Clean through. She's too tough to die from something that simple." FBI Special Agent Rachel Morrison approached them, late 30s, sharp eyes, carrying herself with quiet authority. "Officer Chen, I'm Agent Morrison. We've been monitoring this situation for the past 6 hours. We have everything we need. Webb's confession, Russo's involvement, the evidence you gathered. It's all admissible now because Webb attacked you in front of federal witnesses." "What happens next?" Sarah asked. "We take you into protective custody. You give your full statement. We build our case, and in about 3 months, you testify in federal court and put these men away for the rest of their lives." Morrison looked at Jake. "You too, Mr. Morrison. We'll need your testimony about finding Officer Chen, about Webb's threats, about everything the Hells Angels did to keep her safe." "The brothers who got framed," Jake said. "The ones Webb planted evidence on. They get exonerated. We're already pulling their cases, cross-referencing with the evidence room discrepancies. Anyone who was convicted based on Webb's planted evidence will be released and compensated. Morrison's expression softened slightly. You did a good thing here, Mr. Morrison. All of you. The system failed Officer Chen, but you didn't. Jake looked at Sarah. She was smiling through tears, looking exhausted and triumphant, and so young it broke his heart. She did the hard part, Jake said. We just gave her the support she needed to finish it. The next 3 months were a blur. Sarah spent them in protective custody, working with federal prosecutors to build an airtight case. Jake testified twice, once before a grand jury, once in preliminary hearings. The Hells Angels became unlikely heroes in the media, the biker gang that protected a whistleblower cop when her own department tried to kill her. Webb and Russo both faced federal charges. Conspiracy, racketeering, attempted murder, drug trafficking, evidence tampering. The list went on for pages. Webb's public defender tried to make a deal, but the prosecutors weren't interested. Not with the evidence Sarah had gathered. Not with Jake's testimony about the attempted hit on the highway. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Sarah took the stand on day 3 and didn't leave for 2 full days. She told everything. The evidence room discrepancies. Webb's confession in the hospital hallway. The attempt on her life. Russo's involvement. The corruption that ran through the department like poison. Webb's lawyer tried to destroy her credibility. Called her confused, traumatized, unreliable. But Sarah didn't break. She sat there in her pressed suit with her evidence binders and her unwavering voice, and she burned their whole operation to the ground. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, found both men guilty on all counts. Webb got 40 years federal prison. Russo got 35. Both would die behind bars. The day the verdict came down, Jake stood outside the courthouse with Prophet and 20 brothers waiting for Sarah to emerge. She came out with her parents, all 3 of them crying and laughing and holding each other. When she saw Jake, she broke away and ran to him. "We won," she said, hugging him so tight he could barely breathe. "We actually won." "You won. You did this." "No, we did this. Together." Sarah pulled back and looked at him. Really looked at him. "I'm being reinstated. Full reinstatement to the police force. Captain Torres is being promoted to deputy chief. She's cleaning house, getting rid of everyone who was protecting Webb, and she wants me to work with her, help rebuild the department into something worth believing in." "You're going back." Jake couldn't keep the surprise out of his voice. "I never left. Not really. Someone has to stay and fix what's broken. Someone has to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else." Sarah's eyes were bright with determination. "Torres is creating a new division, ethics and accountability, internal investigations that actually investigate, and she wants me to help run it." That's incredible, Sarah." "It is. But it only happened because you gave me a chance to fight. Because you protected me when I was too weak to protect myself. Because you believed the good guys could win even when you'd spent 15 years learning they couldn't." She took his hand. The 12 brothers Webb framed. They're all being released next week. Full exoneration, criminal records expunged, compensation from the state. They're getting their lives back, Jake, because of you. Jake felt something crack open in his chest. 15 years of bitterness, 15 years of rage at a system that had destroyed him. And here was Sarah offering him the thing he'd thought was impossible. Redemption. "There's something else," Sarah said. "Torres wants to create a community liaison program, partnership between the police and local organizations, building trust, opening communication. And she asked if the Hells Angels would be interested in participating." Prophet stepped forward. "You're asking us to work with cops. I'm asking you to work with people who want to make things better. People who want to build bridges instead of walls." Sarah looked at each of the brothers. "You saved my life. You exposed corruption that had been poisoning this city for decades. You proved that honor and integrity aren't about the uniform you wear. They're about the choices you make. The department needs to learn that lesson, and I think you're the ones to teach it." Prophet looked at Jake, raised an eyebrow. The question was clear. "Your call, brother." Jake looked at Sarah. At this young cop who'd refused to break, who'd trusted him when she had every reason not to, who'd changed everything he thought he knew about justice and the system and what it meant to be a hero. "We're in," Jake said, "on one condition. Torres keeps her word. She cleans up the department, makes it into something worth respecting. And if she doesn't, if the corruption comes back, we go public again. We burn it all down again." "Deal," Sarah said, holding out her hand. Jake shook it. And in that moment, everything changed. 6 months later, Jake stood in a community center that hadn't existed before Sarah's testimony. The building had been funded by the settlement money from the brothers' wrongful convictions and matched by city funds Torres had fought to secure. It was a place where cops and bikers and regular citizens could come together. Talk. Learn. Build something new. Sarah was there out of uniform, helping organize a youth outreach program. Her parents were there too, having become unlikely advocates for police reform. Torres was giving a speech about the new accountability measures the department had implemented. And standing beside Jake were Marcus Antonio Kyle and 9 other brothers who'd been framed by Webb. Free men now, rebuilt lives, second chances made real. "Never thought I'd see this," Marcus said quietly, watching his kids play with children whose parents were cops. "Never thought any of this was possible." "Neither did I," Jake admitted. "But sometimes the world surprises you. Sometimes the good guys actually win." Sarah finished with the youth program and walked over to them. She looked different now, stronger, more confident. The rookie cop who'd nearly died in a ditch had become a force for change that the department couldn't ignore. "Thank you for coming," she said to the freed brothers. "It means everything to have you here." "Thank you for setting us free," Antonio replied. "You gave us our lives back." "Jake gave you your lives back. I just made sure the truth got heard." "You both did," Kyle said. "You both refused to give up. Refused to let the system win. That's what saved us." Sarah looked at Jake. Something passed between them. Understanding. Respect. The bone-deep knowledge that they'd fought for something real and won. "I've been thinking," Sarah said, "about what you told me that night in the hospital. About how the system broke you. About how you lost faith." "I remember." "Did you find it again?" "The faith." Jake looked around the community center. At former convicts talking with cops. At kids playing together without fear. At people from different worlds learning to trust each other. At Sarah Chen, the rookie cop who'd refused to die building something beautiful from the ashes of corruption. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think I did." Sarah smiled. "Good. Because the world needs people who still believe change is possible. Who still believe honor matters. Who still believe one person standing up can make a difference." "Is that what you believe?" "It's what I know. Because I lived it. We all did." She looked at the freed brothers, at Jake, at everyone in that room. "We proved that truth is stronger than corruption. That courage is stronger than fear. That sometimes the most unlikely people become heroes. Not because they wanted to, but because they refused to look away when someone needed help." Prophet appeared beside them carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Jake. "Brother," Prophet said, "I've been thinking about what we built here, about what Sarah started." "What about it?" "I think we should make it permanent. Create a foundation. Keep doing this work, not just in this city, but everywhere, every chapter, every community. Show people that bikers and cops don't have to be enemies, that we can work together to make things better." Jake felt something settle in his chest. Peace, purpose, the thing he'd been searching for since his discharge 15 years ago. "I think that's the best idea you've ever had." Sarah raised her coffee cup. "To new beginnings, to broken systems being rebuilt, to the people brave enough to fight for what's right, even when the world tells them they can't win." They clinked cups together, brothers and cops and family, united by something bigger than themselves. The community center filled with more people as the evening went on. Former enemies sitting down together, conversations happening that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Change rippling out in waves, touching lives, healing wounds, building bridges. Jake caught Sarah's eye across the room. She was talking to a group of young officers, teaching them about ethics and integrity and what it really meant to serve and protect. And she was glowing with purpose. He'd saved her life that rainy night, but she'd saved something in him too. Something he'd thought was dead. Hope, faith, the belief that the world could be better if people were willing to fight for it. Marcus walked up beside him. "My kids are asking if you'll teach them to ride motorcycles." Jake laughed. "They're 8 and 10. So start them young, build character." Marcus's expression turned serious. "Jake, I never got to properly thank you for standing up when it mattered, for protecting Sarah so she could set us free, for risking everything when you didn't have to. You don't need to thank me. We're brothers. That's what brothers do. Still, I owe you my life. All of us do. We won't forget that. Just pay it forward. Help someone else who needs it. That's all the thanks I need." Sarah finished with the young officers and made her way back to Jake. The crowd was thinning now, people heading home, but the energy in the room remained. Hopeful, optimistic, real. "I've got something for you," Sarah said, pulling a small box from her pocket. "Didn't know if I'd have the courage to give it to you. But after tonight, after seeing all this, I think it's time." Jake opened the box. Inside was a medallion, heavy metal engraved with words, "For courage beyond the call of duty, for standing when others ran, for protecting the innocent at any cost." "The department wanted to give you an official commendation," Sarah explained. "But Torres and I thought you deserved something more personal, something that came from the heart, not the bureaucracy." Jake's throat was too tight to speak. He just held the medallion, feeling its weight. "You changed my life, Jake Morrison," Sarah continued. "You showed me that honor isn't about the uniform. It's about the person wearing it. And you're the most honorable person I've ever met. I'm a criminal, a biker, someone the system threw away. You're a hero. And the system was wrong about you, just like it was wrong about a lot of things." Sarah put her hand on his shoulder. "We're fixing it, slowly, one case at a time, one corrupt cop at a time, one bridge at a time, and we're doing it because you gave me the chance to fight." Jake pulled her into a hug, a real hug, the kind that said everything words couldn't. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me, for believing in me, for reminding me that the good guys can win. We did win, all of us, together." They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the life they'd built from the wreckage of that rainy night. Then Sarah pulled back and smiled. "Come on, my parents want to buy you dinner. They're insisting. Something about thanking the man who saved their daughter's life." "I really don't need." "Jake Morrison, you've faced down corrupt cops, survived gunfights, and broken into a police station. I think you can survive dinner with my parents." Jake laughed, despite himself. "When you put it that way." They walked out of the community center together into a night that held promise instead of threat. Behind them, the lights of the center glowed warm and welcoming, a beacon of hope in a city that had forgotten what hope looked like. Jake climbed onto his Harley, the medallion Sarah had given him tucked safely in his vest pocket. The engine roared to life, and for the first time in 15 years, the sound didn't remind him of running from his past. It reminded him of riding toward his future. Sarah and her parents got into their car. Prophet and the brothers mounted their bikes, and together they rode through streets that no longer felt like battlegrounds, because Sarah Chen had refused to die, had refused to give up, had refused to let corruption win. And in doing so, she'd saved more than just herself. She'd saved everyone who'd helped her, everyone who'd believed in her, everyone who'd stood beside her when the whole world wanted her silenced. The city lights flickered overhead as they rode toward home, toward family, toward a tomorrow that looked nothing like yesterday. Jake had spent 15 years believing the system was broken beyond repair, believing that honor was dead and justice was a lie. Sarah Chen had proved him wrong, and in proving him wrong, she'd given him back something he thought he'd lost forever. She'd given him back himself. The medallion in his pocket felt heavy with meaning, with promise, with the weight of lives saved and futures rebuilt. Jake Morrison had saved a dying cop on a rainy night, But Sarah Chen had saved something even more precious. She'd saved his faith in humanity. And that was worth more than any commendation, any thanks, any reward the world could offer. Because sometimes, the most broken people become the strongest healers. Sometimes the most unlikely heroes change everything. And sometimes when you stop to help a stranger bleeding in the rain, you don't just save their life, you save your own.